sorry. Welcome to Through a Glass Darkly. This is my monthly live session, which I kind of only do once a month. This is not the radio show where there's any specific kind of agenda. I just kind of go through how the channel's doing. In terms of channel news, June was a little bit better of a month, even though YouTube is still not sharing impressions as many anymore. There I go. Let's see. So nothing really much, not a lot in channel news. Upcoming episodes, 2 new episodes with Edward Reardon coming up, another one with Nathaniel Gillis on Angels of all things. So tune in for that one. I accidentally scheduled it for July 7th. And if you sum up the episode number, I think it's like, I'm just trying to do the math in my head. Whatever the episode number is, it also reduces to 7 if you just add the digits and then keep adding the digits until it collapses into a single number. So I randomly assigned it on 7/7, and the episode adds in numerology to 7. No idea. Anyway, and then we have another video from Benton Ryer. Definitely listen to that one because he's dealt with some, one of the persons that he's kind of cleared was in a Pazuzu cult. I'm not making this stuff up, but just it's that one's a pretty dark one, and it's a good one. So anyway, that's kind of where we are there. And then Q&A session. Let me just look at the comments. Hey, good to see you, Brian. I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. And Arizona Raven. Love the Raven. Okay. Now, a bunch of people were brought here who probably came here from Twitter or X, I guess as they call it. And, oh, nice. So, yeah, we'll see how that... I'm running another experiment on that, which is just a thumbnail experiment. We'll see how that goes. But kind of at the last minute, it's not on the thumbnail or anything like that. Interesting. Yeah, so we had a Benton Ryer kind of Shinto healing video that came out today. Definitely check it out. You will like vibrate with energy in terms of like your skin will heat up. It's kind of weird. So just check it out. Yeah, no worries. Anyway, I'm burying the lead here. So Richard Geldreich is like sitting here waiting for me to shut my cake hole. So without further ado, I'm gonna introduce him. I mean, I don't need to introduce you. Everybody knows by this point who you are.
Hey,
but
Sean, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, and you got a new microphone because of me.
I do, exactly. I'm not used to this.
So it sounds a lot better. It sounds a lot better, man. It sounds a lot better.
So does it sound $110 worth? Does it sound that good?
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, I've been doing research as you're talking, by the way, on this Psalm 101. Just refreshing my memory. So
2 things the first thing I'm gonna quickly discuss is neither here nor there. It's just for me to just put a pin in something, and then the rest of the episode we're gonna talk about this weird thing that came out from Tim Phillips, of like former director of Arrow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. About a crash retrieval or operations manual from the 1940s, which is definitely not Psalm 101.
Yeah, it's unclear exactly what he's referring to. He refers to a plan, but it's on original paper, period correct style font paper. A plan going back to the 1940s.
Speaking of the microphone, and for some reason you're...
I'm new to this, Sean. I'm not a podcaster like you. Yeah, all right. All right.
I think your connection is like... Oh, that's better now.
Is it all right? Is it better?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, sorry, man.
Remember, we determined the cardioid shape, right? The heart.
Yeah, we were messing with the settings on this.
I was doing it wrong for 2 years.
What is it called? Blue Eddy or something?
Blue Yeti.
Blue Yeti.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like
Anyway, I'm not a
Rich fact
professional
checker.
podcaster like you.
Well, like I said, this professional was doing it wrong for 2 years. I didn't even have the
You
right
had it
setting.
backwards.
I didn't even
Really?
have no. You had it backwards. I don't think I ever had it backwards, but
I did have it backwards. I fixed it.
I didn't have the cardioid setting, but we corrected that. You benefited from like 3 years of hard won experience. Anyway, people are like, get to the point. Stop talking. I don't want to hear you talk. I'm here to hear Richard talk. Stop talking. The host needs to stop talking. Anyway. All right. I'm gonna keep talking.
Yeah. So when I heard earlier, I had someone DM me earlier that it's Phillips, right? Timothy Phillips. I have his resume right here. I guess the former acting director of Arrow had said that they had found a plan, 1940s plan about ET retrievals, right? And as soon as I heard that, and I heard it,
operations manual.
yeah, as soon as I heard that, I'm like,
between an operations plan, an op plan, and an operations manual, two different things, two very different. Things.
However, it's true. It's true. However, first, for him to be permitted to say that to me is actually pretty incredible, right? He didn't have to say that at all, right? And by him saying that, I mean that kind of gives credence to. First of all, let's go back to 1940s, right? In 1940, there were no ETs. That's all crackpot. That's crazy talk. It's lunatic asylum bullshit, right? That you're not allowed to talk that way, right? Not in polite company. That's literally crazy talk. And 50s is the same thing. It's like, no, it's like movie shit, right? And so why would the government have a plan for something crazy like this? It doesn't make any sense, right? Unless they knew something or suspected something.
The fact that it's 1940s too, it depends on what part of the 40s, because is he saying it's a DOD operations manual, or is he saying it's a War Department?
I have the transcript and I have a summary like right here. And he says I think all he said was 1940s. He says 1940s. He does mention Department of Defense several times specifically. He says it's not a digital document, so it was on actual period correct paper. That rules out that it was just something they bought on Amazon, right? I mean,
he also clearly defined that statement already narrowed it down to a 3-year period, right? Because the Department of Defense did not exist until 1947, right?
Well, that's when they did the reorganization. Yeah, they made the Air Force,
the National Security Act of 1947. So it's a 3-year.
Yeah, this is
period.
Actually it's very heavy to me. It's heavy information, because if they were, creating con plans, contingency plans or whatever, like they would have had to have pulled in. Think about it. Like you just don't pull in anybody to make contingency plans for an ET crashes and shit, right? You got to pull in experts, or at least some scientists and engineers and stuff who would be the best at this. Who would you pull in? You probably pull in.
When did Camp Girardeau?
Yeah, you would pull in personnel who were involved in the Cape Girardeau, Missouri situation, potentially, or
Cape
Battle of LA. Cape Girardeau, the Battle of LA. You would maybe pull in those folks, or maybe if it's after World War II, you would pull in the folks involved in the Italian retrievals. I don't know. We're obviously we don't. Grush talked about the Italian retrieval, so I believe if Grush is saying it, he believes it for sure. So something happened. Like, listen, we know. Let's not play stupid here, right? We know during World War II there was tons of Foo Fighters, as I call them, UAP spheres flying around in both theaters. They were spotted by really tons and tons of personnel. Leonard Stringfield, Army Air Force intelligence spotted them, right? We know that the Manhattan Project, as Grush said, was one of the earliest kind of like UFO reporting agencies, and I have huge chronologies myself, which I compiled from other researchers, and all of our sensitive sites, involved in the atomic program were having UAP problems, right? So we surely listen. If there was a security, there's no way our security personnel would not have been aware of this. It's guaranteed they would have been all over this shit, right? Any kind of weird shit flying over a sensitive site, our best people would be on it. And they would probably at first think, well, maybe it's German or Japanese or something like that, right? Some Axis stuff going on, but they would have ruled that out, right? It just wasn't plausible. The Japanese balloon bombs and stuff which was very secret, by the way, back then. That was talked about very little in newspapers until after the war. I've actually researched the balloon bomb situation a lot because
what is that?
the
Unit
newspaper
8 something? Unit, I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't recall
It's
the
like a
exact
3-digit number.
Yeah, I'm not. What I specifically have researched is the newspaper secrecy and censorship, which makes total sense during World War II related to balloon bombs. And what's interesting is after World War II is over, that secrecy and that censorship emerged in the newspapers. I have the clippings. I posted a bunch of them on X, and editors would kind of like slip in there that the UFO, or they called them saucers and disc back then, the UFO and UAP situation resembled the balloon bomb thing because a lot of editors would hold back articles. Apparently, that's what they wrote about, right? And we know this now that we know after the 53, Robertson panel and whatnot, that they tried to clamp down on this because it was a security problem, because the Soviets could have exploited it, right? They could have flooded all of our channels with fake or hoax sightings, things like that. I get that, whatever. Yeah. Anyhow, our security people would have been all over this shit. So I'm just kind of like, we should just stop playing stupid. I wish everybody would stop playing stupid. Frankly, we know that there's something going on. Like it's just no doubt whatsoever. Now you might argue, well, maybe it's one enormous psyop, but that's, to me, it's like the Wall Street Journal stuff's talking about the recent articles, right? And it's just stupid.
I mean, that one was just badly. It was just badly.
It's not even journalism. It's not even pure journalism. It's more like propaganda. It's state sanctioned propaganda, effectively. Journalism would be, you go interview all of the individuals who were witnesses, who are still alive. Many of them are still alive, significant ones. None of that happened. It was all just one-sided BS. I know Sean and I are just like going all over the place tonight. I don't have a plan for this, for what we're talking about. Sean was like, "Hey, do you want to go on?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. Let's just go on and talk about it." But anyway, yeah, this whole thing where it's a big psyop and stuff. Well, wait a second. Let's say we can play devil's advocate. Because, okay, what if it is a big psyop, right? What if, since 1947 at least, which is a really long time ago, they've been psyoping thousands of personnel and the American public, whatever. Why are you doing this? Like, what are you trying to cover up? First, how do you cover anything up by saying it's aliens and saucers? That's the anti-cover up. As soon as you say that, everybody and their brother wants to know what's going on. You can't. None of this is secret. Yeah. It's stupid. No, you're not.
Well, it used to work. It used to work because there was more shame associated with it, like
the so-called stigma. Yeah, but none of this never worked, because what I have found, if you go back in time, it's all over the newspapers. We have literally easily 1 million hits. Easily, it's really several million. I'm still trying to get an accurate number. Positive though, over 1 million hits in newspapers.com, and it increases 4,000 to 7,000 hits, not articles or pages, but hits per month, right? Newly digitized stuff's coming in. So everybody and their brother was talking about this. It was all over TV, by the way, in 1950, 1951. So the first book on crash retrievals, Behind the Flying Saucers by Frank Scully, he went on a big TV tour. Remember, TV was very new in 1950, and a lot of the tapes have not survived, right? Over the decades and whatever. But to advertise the book, he would go all over TV, and he would just talk about it. And he went like there was a major campaign, all the major cities, right? Everybody who had a TV. And back then, if you lived within 75 miles or so of a major city and you had the money, you went and bought a black and white TV, right? And they had these little screens with a huge magnifying glass. It was, the crude things, but whatever. But anyway,
cathode ray tubes, right?
Yeah. People were introduced to the crash retrieval topic. So, like, yeah, the very topic to us is like weird and exotic and out on the limb. This was talked about endlessly in 1950 and all throughout the 50s and the 60s. In the 60s, by the mid 60s, it was in comics and newspapers. You would have an abduction piece, like a comic, right next to the crossword puzzle in the mid to late 60s. I'm not joking. So culturally, by the mid 60s, this whole topic was very normalized. And the reason why is because everybody and their brother and the Air Force and the military, et cetera, all over the world, but especially in the US, were seeing these things in the sky. And it was just, they started taking it for granted, right? So is that a psyop? Now, how would they do that kind of psyop? How would they make people all over the world including jet fighters, by the way, in the Soviet Union, see these craft, right? And they would land sometimes too. And by the way, they would leave landing impressions. And sometimes, if you go read Valley's latest scientific paper, they would, these really bright and very hot heat emitting and radiation emitting objects would burn the sides of trees. And it turns out that material has been collected by scientists and has been analyzed, and they found that the amount of radiation being emitted is off the charts. And this is all this, very scientific the way that this is really one of Lee's latest papers. So like Valley and Nolan are Dr. Nolan are like at the tip of the spear on this kind of research. And there's no way, if this is a psyop, then how did we do it to ourselves, and why would we do this? And by the way, we can just keep going on. I can just keep going on about this. Like Nolan has found, and Valley's been involved in this, strange isotopes that were dropped at UAP events, and they've had these isotopes analyzed, and they're extremely exotic. It would have cost endless fortunes to make in a nuclear reactor and shit. And it's like, hold on,
bismuth. It's like bismuth or something like that.
These are exotic isotopes, right? And they've been analyzed, and there's been papers that Nolan and Valley or whatever written about them, and Nolan's talked about it several times. He talked about it at the Seoul conference I was at a couple years ago at Stanford. And hold on. So did the DoD make these exotic isotopes and drop them off in foreign nations, by the way, for Soviets to find? No, this is just stupid. It's just the usual cover up. The cover up hasn't gone away. It's still fighting. It's ruthlessly fighting, trying to stay relevant. And it's just a joke at this point, right? We know Sandcorp was involved with Arrow. We know Arrow spent more money on Sandcorp than it did for at least a couple years ago, than it did on scientific, research and things like that. And it's all leaked. It's all over X. It's all over Reddit. Like, what did Sandcorp do? I'm sure it's a great crew. I have no, nothing against Sandcorp, whatever. But my beef is that Arrow was paying this crew to, help with their influencing campaigns and whatever. It's just,
yeah. Didn't Christopher Sharp was like going through their budget for all their influence campaigns and stuff like that at Arrow?
Why would we need an influence campaign at all? What they're balloons? They're Mylar balloons, geese, and reflections off glass, instead like
reflections off seagulls at a moonlit night,
chicken coop,
gas emissions with the methane.
50s debunked. Yeah, it's swamp gas. It's swamp. Why would we need influence campaigns that were swamp gas? None of this makes any freaking sense, So that's why, by the way, I love this topic because, first of all, it helps ground us in history. How many times I was never really interested in history, really, in school, right? It's just boring the way they teach it. But if they would have told me that all this crazy shit happened in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and like, excuse my language, I don't know what curse, Men in Black and stuff like that, and the things flying over our air bases, all the super sensitive and specialized cameras that were sent up in our jet fighters to photograph them, and that's all over the newspapers. Like, if you just sit down and go through the newspapers and the magazines of the era, right, and you listen to some of the recorded tapes and things like that, it's holy shit. All kinds of amazing things happen in the past. So to me personally, this brings, I love reading these. Mostly, I love reading these old papers and seeing what was happening. What I don't like is back then in the old days, right? The papers were more visceral. So you'll sometimes see on the side unrelated articles, unrelated to UAP, like murders and worse. And dude, it's brutal. It's brutal. Like, it's bad. So I do my best now to like shield myself from some of that shit, from back then. It's bad. You don't want to get pulled in. It's depressing. Some of the articles are like, whoa, oh, I mean, it happened 7 years ago, right? So, but still, it's just too much sometimes. But anyway, yeah, I've collected personally around up to approximately 7,000 to 8,000, I think, from memory, newspaper clippings of my own. I probably have more than that now. Just to compare though, Charles Fort had 55,000. He was an author. Back in the early 20th century about anomalous phenomena, including UAP, but other phenomena as well. And he had manually collected tons of clippings. So clippings are really interesting because it bypasses the authorities. Like, these are local. A lot of these newspapers they're local.
They can't, because they would typically back in the day only be able to suppress the national.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't enough people to suppress all the local ones.
they could control the national the editors, they could control the news wires to some extent, right? But they couldn't control the local editors. The local editors just wanted print. They wanted that shit to sell, right? They a lot of times, like, local editors will get a call back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and then boom, it went right into the newspaper. Sometimes the first page, or in the middle, or whatever. I have found endless UAP reports, some of them amazing. I found whole, like, multi-page, a handful of multi-page events that were covered in newspapers that are not in any databases, not in any books. They are endless, and new ones are flooding in constantly. So this is there are things that haven't been read by anyone alive in the entire world right now, because everybody who read these things are dead, probably, or in nursing homes, right? So we are getting new information. It's a flood of it. I can't keep up with it. It's overwhelming. So anyway, when I hear, like, this Wall Street Journal stuff, these are articles written by people that were not researchers. They don't put in virtually any effort to do the legwork, even though literally, like, over 1 million hits are available right now from one click away for about $15 a month on newspapers.com. They don't even try. And by the way, there are free newspapers, like the California, I think the state of California has a free newspaper archive, which I have used, and it's just as good as newspapers.com, and it's freaking free. And by the way, Australia has their own. Right, I can just keep going on and on. All these different countries have their own.
Event Horizon is saying thanks for the shout out, Rich Dash.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Event Horizon DM me earlier.
That's not Ross Coulthard, is it?
I don't think so. I'm not an expert on Event Horizon, but that is let's see. I'm looking my it's John Michael. And forgive me, I'm terrible at pronouncing names. John Michael Godier's Event Horizon. Yeah, thanks a lot, John, for texting me about the situation. So yeah, going back to that situation. So wait, they had a con plan or a contingency plan of some sort for ET retrievals or something crashing. Oh, Ross is producer. Oh, I didn't know.
Wait, producer of the movie Event Horizon, or
no? I think the podcast. I think that's what he's saying there.
Oh, okay.
Is that Ross Coulthard?
No, I don't think so. It just says no.
Yeah.
Ross, producer of Event Horizon.
Okay. Oh, cool. Well, anyway.
So here's the thing: when you talked about what Timothy Phillips said, there's three things that are important to note.
Yeah.
He interchangeably uses the terms operation manual, and operations plan. The two things from a military context have completely different meanings. So an operations manual would be like Psalm 101, the so-called
tan covered classified operation. Well, tan covered classified operations manual or operation orders.
Whenever you're looking over to your left and you're reading something, like you're
I know, fall off. That's fine.
No. There's something going on with the speed of your the connection.
Oh, I see. When I alt tab like this, it gets all messed up. Hey, we're winging this, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? Next time I do this, I'll bring a laptop so that doesn't happen.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, at least we diagnosed that. Now we know why that's happening.
Hey, well, here's the question. When I do that, is my audio okay?
No, it gets...
It's like right now, is the audio fine?
Yeah, it's not.
Is the audio okay now? Weird. That's strange.
No.
Okay.
What happens is your thing speeds up, like your videos and your speed, like everything speeds up and it gets clipped.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So there's something going on.
I'm going to have to do it all occasionally. I don't have my laptop in me. Sorry, viewers. We're winging this. This is all new.
Yeah, you gotta break in. This is the easiest one to break in. This is like a less attended.
Yeah, exactly. Because
it's not. It just says July live stream. So like, unless you know who I am, nobody's showing up. So it's a good.
We're just like a test run here. We're doing a test run, totally. Yeah. By the way, this machine, I had it overclocked. And I disabled the overclocking, so hopefully it doesn't lock up or anything like that.
That's what it probably was. It was probably overclocking. Yeah.
Well, anyway, think back to like 1945, 1947, right? Like we just finished World War II. The soldiers are coming back. We just A-bombed Japan. We just bounced. They claimed that they announced. Right after the war, we bounced radar signals off the moon in early 46. In reality, that happened during World War II secretly, but we kept it secret because we didn't want the Nazis, the Japanese know about it. The V2 rockets were just being sent up, just going to space, right? In 46, 47, we just started to take photos. The best photos weren't even released until 48. So they weren't disclosed fully. As far as I can determine, only the fuzziest, crappiest stuff was released in 46, 47. And then in 48, they started to release better photos. And so now, hold on. So now let's just assume, I don't know much about Timothy Phillips, but just looking at the fellow, he looks more trustworthy to me than Kirkpatrick.
Really?
And he does, yeah.
Looks,
to me personally,
to me, it looks sketchy as.
No,
sketchy.
I disagree. All the new Arrow people, they look. I just at first glance, they look fine to me. Now Kirkpatrick, I'm sorry, Kirkpatrick, but you just look like an intelligence officer. You look like if you were
a supervillain.
He does. He's perfect for the guy who's like running the Ukrainian drone operations. That's the guy we want on the Ukrainian ops, right? You know what I mean? Like, but not the UFO thing. No, because nobody's going to trust Kirkpatrick. It's all going to backfire with Kirkpatrick, and that's exactly what happened, actually. And by the way, Kirkpatrick's supposed to be this really smart gentleman. I'm sure he's very smart, right? But how did they screw up the Kenneth Arnold date in the Arrow report? How do you screw that up?
It had to have been deliberate.
How do you do? Well, no, I mean, that's what they published. How do you screw up put the wrong date on there? Like everybody in this field should know June 24th, 1947. That's 101. It's even in Wikipedia. Airship mysteries. Yes, I have. Yeah. Okay. The airship thing, 1896, 1897. I have a nuanced opinion about this. So what's really interesting about that time period is it's pre-containment. So you can look at like Project Sign, Project Grudge, late 40s. That was when containment, Cold War style containment of UAP information kicked in, right? The government was like, all right, we gotta clamp down on this shit. There's just too much crazy shit going on. We got the Cold War, we got A-bombs, we got the freaking rockets, we got the Soviet spies, we got all this crazy shit. We need to, and it makes sense. They had to clamp down on. I understand it. 1896, 1897, none of that was in place, right? We didn't have radio, we didn't have I think telephones, we had like crude telephones, things like that, and telegraphs. We definitely had telegraphs and stuff like that. But anyway, so it's raw. The newspaper articles from that time period are raw, and you're going to get everything. And this is just my personal opinion on this. You're going to get real reports. You're going to get hoax reports. You're going to get newspaper hoaxes to increase readership. You're going to get everything in there. And that's actually, if you go look at the deepest, most thorough research from that era, for that era, that's what you find. You find a wide variety of reports. But if you sit down and read them and study them, you'll find that it's pretty much essentially the same kind of reports with different period-specific terminology used, more flowery and things like that. But there's some weird ones. Like I found some of my own mystery airship articles, and the locals. This was in near Ohio, right? And this is 1896, 1897 time period. The locals were so excited because they're like, "Oh my God, it's airships! This is great. We're gonna have jobs. This is great. It's gonna cut unemployment. This is wonderful. We're gonna have an airship plant. This is great."
Isn't that like the headquarters of the Goodyear blimp?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head where the headquarters would be for that. Yeah, but in 1896, 1897, like the kind of airships that were being described with lights, flying sometimes fairly quickly. At night, by the way, night flying, even in the early 1900s, was extraordinarily dangerous. You were suicidal, to do that. You were like Top Gun of that era to fly in the early 1900s with an airplane at night. But a lot of these mystery airships were tooting around at night. And sometimes, by the way, they would pick up cattle, and that's your dead giveaway. Okay, this is not your normal, balloon. However, there is I'll put this out there too. I have a chronology here from, and I don't want to click to it because I know I'll start stuttering, whatever. But I have a chronology from a French researcher, and it's a UAP chronology, but in there, it's an amazing chronology. I translated it using AI.
By the way, the Goodyear blimp originated in Ohio. Specifically, it was first developed and launched by the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company in Akron, Ohio, in the
Yeah.
early 20th century.
Yeah. Got it.
So it's interesting that it showed up there first.
Yep. Anyway, this French chronology is really interesting because she covers the history of rocketry, like crude, like fireworks and things like that, and military rocketry and balloons. And apparently there was a covert balloon effort in the 1800s, and this was considered military technology back then. So this was very secret. So what's really real interesting about the 1896-97 waves is that you have all of these things all intertwined: newspaper hoaxes, weird UAP-like things, night flying, potentially actual potentially high-tech airships that were ours. I mean, who knows, right? So there are articles, especially from Europe, that talk about like top secret airship developments. Like it's like the stealth fighters of their era, right? You know what I mean? So it's all this stuff put together. So my personal opinion is they're not all hoaxes. That's a binary way of thinking. It's not reality. When is reality ever really that simple? So why, by the way, why would the UAP phenomena just magically pop in, during World War II or 47? So you can go back and you can find in every decade in the 20th century, all the way back to the Wright brothers, you'll find reports of weird mystery airplanes. And a lot of these reports probably are just, crazy aviators, right? Flying around doing their crazy stuff. But what you will find are reports of night flyers. And that's where it gets really interesting, because there is a lot of high quality documentation and academic works on the history of night flying specifically. And you can now start comparing the official history of night flying versus the mystery airplane incidents. And what you will find is that something's not making any sense. Like, I've found tons of mystery airplane incidents from the mid 1910s, stuff like that, right before World War I or even during World War I, right? And we were shooting at these planes. The military was really pissed off at these planes. They were flying over our sensitive, gunpowder or whatever, the period equivalent plants were. Like, there was weird shit going on reported all over the American newspapers. And it's unexplained. Like, and by the way, a lot of these things were happening at night, and sometimes there were multiple planes. And this was literally in that time period, right after the Wright brothers, right leading into World War I. This was suicide. Like, keep in mind that a lot of times they didn't have night instruments and shit like that. It was just crazy. So this is like a whole rabbit hole that I don't think has been explored much at all, is that we need to tease out which were the legit mystery airplane, incidents versus the anomalous ones, and then drill down. Okay, well, the anomalous ones, what was going on? Like, were they flying over our sensitive sites back then too? It appears that that's, from what I can determine so far, and I haven't spent a huge amount of time on this. I just pulled these in, like for fun as I was researching the 40s and 50s, which is really what I'm focusing on right now. It's just a whole black hole, and there have been some. There's a book that I actually I digitized, and I OCR'd and whatever, and I put all the chronology entries in there. It's like all the events that author could find before Roswell, and you can use that as a starting ground, stuff like that. By the way, mystery notes were dropped, by the airships. It just goes on and on and on, right? Whatever. My personal take on it is that the phenomena goes back eons, and there's some external, probably multiple external intelligences interacting with us. They either can nudge us forward or they can apply the brakes. I think the mystery drone wave was them applying the brakes. And also, when they apply the brakes, I think it appears that they want the civilians not to panic, but they want the military to panic. I mean, if I was in the military and all of my top secret air bases were being overflown in the last few months,
Mm-hmm.
I would be shitting my pants, because I would be thinking, what is Russia doing? What is China? What is going on? Right? I am certain they've been doing through this, and they're not told. They have no idea of the history, Sean, of this phenomena. They have no idea. They haven't read the books. They don't know about who's Richard Dolan. They have no idea. You know what I mean? So yeah, and I've talked to, well, how do I say this? I have spoken with people over the last few months who are working with other individuals, and they're trying to figure out what the hell is going to happen with the mystery drones, right? And when they talk to people like me, I'm speaking a different language than what they speak, right? And I can tell there's a impedance mismatch there between my language and it, because I've researched this for many years, and I've read about it before that, and I'm a big fan of Richard Dolan and a bunch of other figures in the space. So to me, it's just like, yeah, this is obvious. But to them, they're still trying to wrap their heads around it, and to me, the whole situation is ridiculous. We're obviously hurting our own security by not at least bringing the baseline knowledge of this phenomena up to all of our intelligence and counterintelligence people. It's just a one-on-one thing, right? Anyway, I'm just kind of meandering around, Sean, but yeah, going back to Phillips and this,
yeah, everything's compartmentalized. So
yeah, it's too compartmental. The problem is it's not classified that they're not alone. That's what all these folks have been saying, the Colonel Nels and etc. for ages now. It's not classified. So why are we just not bringing up everybody to speed? Nobody's going to panic. Nobody, to be honest with you, 99% of people don't give a flying crap about this. They don't care. If it doesn't affect their mortgages or their car payments or their iPhones, what do they care? What's flying around in the sky? You know what I mean? They have no idea, and they don't give a shit. So they're not going to panic. They're not going to head to the hills like some Soul Foundation people say and things like that. It's not. They don't have time for that. They don't have to. They're busy.
Who's saying that?
Not Colonel Went. As Alexander Went at a couple of years ago, 3 years ago.
I remember that presentation.
Yeah, this is at.
I discounted the whole thing. I'm like, that doesn't make.
Where was this at? This was in Huntsville, Alabama. I went to the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. I went to one of their events, and it was a really nice event. The people there were very nice. And
it's a modified limited hangout, clearly.
But they were nice. And by the way, the food was
nice.
Great.
It was a nice modified limited hangout.
The food was great. I can't complain too much, right?
Spooks were very nice. Yeah.
Alexander went, did his thing, and did his song and dance, and he's like, everybody's gonna head to the hills with guns. They're gonna go crazy. It'd be mass panic, and it's so 50s. It's like these people are thinking in the 50s. They're super intelligent, very academic. They got all these nice suits, and you know what I mean. They're probably making a fortune and stuff like that. And it's like you're just clueless. They're just clueless. I don't think anybody's going to do that. Here we are, man. How many times have we been overflown?
These are the same people that are saying everyone will be happy if they just eat some bugs and live in 15-minute cities and own nothing.
Oh, I'm a big fan. I joke when I say this. I'm a big fan. That is what is his name now? Klaus. Uncle Klaus. Yeah. Uncle Klaus. Yeah, Klaus. I'm a big fan, but that's a whole different topic, Sean. I don't know if that fits the show at all.
He is like the best supervillain ever, even better than Kirkpatrick.
No, I do wonder though. I do wonder at the elite level. What do they know of UAP? I do have to wonder. Do they know that we're not alone? Do they know that? I kind of wonder. Do they know that there have been crashes? Right? Are they told? Are there?
Did you see this? Do not go to conventions. They are massive siphoning events.
I completely agree with this. They are siphoning. I like that phrase. I look at them as honey, kind of like honey traps.
Honey
they're reeling in. I mean, honey trap. I think it'd be more honey trap though. I think we could debate honey trap versus honey pot, like it's intelligence terminology. Well, I've been told they're not the same thing. They're not.
What's a honey trap? What's a honey trap?
A honey trap would be you reel in. I mean, it makes perfect sense too, right? You want to reel in the influencers. You want to get the influencers to go to your events, and then you want to obviously talk to them, have your people talk to them, and you want to pull some people aside. You can influence the influencers, right? That's what's going on at these kind of events. You're influencing the influencers. And it's nothing nefarious. Obviously, they're being influenced because you're giving them special presentations just for them, right?
And what's a honeypot? Is it basically the same thing, only it's sexual?
Yeah. I mean, as far as I am not an intelligence officer. Maybe somebody like John Ramirez or Semivan would know better, but because they're
he only appears on foreign podcasts. That's strange for somebody who's retired from the CIA.
Which one?
John Ramirez.
Oh, are you positive about that? I thought I looked into that. Are you sure?
I think the vast majority of the podcasts that he appears on are foreign.
Well, that's his deal, right? He can choose.
CIA cannot.
That's his deal. Yeah, Ramirez.
CIA
I'm a big fan of both Ramirez and Semivan. I'm a very big fan of both of those guys.
well, Semivan talks to everybody.
Yeah,
So,
there.
but if you're in the CIA and I mean, well, the CIA is only allegedly allowed to conduct operations overseas.
Well, look at it this way: if they are disclosing, and they certainly seem to be talking, right? Then it will be an operation, right? That makes sense, and it's a necessary operation. What's wrong with that? I have no problems with it. I mean, they are talking. You got to give them this. If it wasn't for these folks like Elizondo, Ramirez, whatever, I wouldn't be looking at this at all. I didn't think it was
By the way,
real.
where is Elizondo? He's kind of gone dark, hasn't he?
I don't track. I don't know exactly what's going on. Ever since the cornfield incident, the unfortunate cornfield photo, I have no idea. I have
the irrigation circle. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea what happened. After I saw the cornfield, I was like, all right, I'm tuning out of this.
Oops, I did it again.
This
right?
is not good. This is not good. I'm just tuning out.
Oopsie.
I would never have shown that photo. That's embarrassing. To me, it would have been embarrassing. Like, look, I got a UFO. It's like, no, don't. At this point, everybody should know.
I was interviewing Whitley Strieber, and he's like, well, I don't know. Like, I still haven't decided whether it was on purpose or accidental. He's like, look, I make mistakes like that all the time. And I stop. I'm like, but Whitley, would you make a mistake like that in front of the U.S. Congress? And he just looked at me, kind of lowered his eyes, and he said, no.
No. I mean,
no.
Maybe he's just not a photographic intelligence expert. Okay, fine. I wouldn't have shown it. If you have any doubt whatsoever about a UFO piece of media, it's fake. That's how I look at it. If there's any doubt whatsoever, just put it aside. You don't need it anyway, right? We have enormous amounts of extremely high quality sighting reports from the government, from military. We know they were putting cameras up there. We don't need any media, right? Media is like the extra stuff that you can add on top if it's high quality. And my personal take on this, if you cannot prove that the media has been censored or taken by FBI or U.S. Air Force intelligence, like if you can't prove that with official documents, they went and grabbed the photo, then I ignore it. And that's a filter. That's a really interesting filter, because once you impose that filter, only a few photos survive. And those are the most interesting photos I've ever seen. And I've shown some of them at various conferences.
And like even now that there's AI, it's virtually impossible to determine.
Yeah, but the good news is you can go back in time. We have a lot of good stuff from the old days, right? That's in old newspaper, physically. Like there's some really interesting photos that have survived. Also, the Library of Congress has a lot of interesting UFO media. It has a chain of custody, right? Like, Blue Book actually had a share of its stuff. By the way, everybody thinks Project Blue Book, U.S. Air Force was kind of useless, was just a big cover up. It's not that simple. It really isn't. It depends on the year. It depends on who was there, because aviators were dying or getting hurt or encountering these things. And so what I found in newspapers was the Air Force was moody about this. In the late 40s and the early 50s, they were pushing forward awareness of flying discs and flying saucers, UAPs. They were the ones doing this. They would release key details to the press. They would push things forward. It's not a simple it's all just a cover up. And by the way, I've been through a lot. A lot of this is on archive.org now. I've been through every archive.org Blue Book document I could find, right? And it's a huge flood of them. Some of that stuff in there is it's just unbelievable. It blows the mind. Like very few people have actually just sat down and read the actual original paperwork that they released. And you'll see once you read that stuff, you'll know something amazing happened in the late 40s and early 50s for sure, at the minimum, right? For example, there are extremely detailed investigations, and they went to extreme lengths to vet these witnesses. Some of these witnesses were already vetted. They were security personnel at Sandia Base and things like that. They would go further to vet these folks when they said that weird shit was happening at our sensitive sites, right? And the public as well. The public, there was one guy who on a Brownie camera took a photo, and I've showed this photo because it was confiscated. And They investigated this guy's neighbors, his family, his credit report, whatever the equivalent was at the time. Like they looked everywhere to find any dirt they could on this guy. Couldn't find shit on this guy. So, and this was I think it was in Phoenix, Arizona. So anyway, but here's the thing. Here's why I'm putting this out. Is that something was going on. You don't do that. You don't waste investigators if nothing's going on. You don't go in and pull credit reports and talk to neighbors and shit unless something's going on, right? And that's not a psyop. They were doing real investigations. This is real, like, doing legwork. This is like detective stuff, right? It's all there. It's all in the Blue Book docs, man. Nobody reads this shit, but it's all sitting there. And by the way, it's easily OCR'd now. So you can easily, search it very rapidly with, various tools and things like that locally. And you can find amazing stuff. And these reports, the Blue Book stuff, it continued until the late 60s, right? Until around 69. So there are endless military reports that were sent to Blue Book. Personnel on ships were seeing these things. It just was constant. And a lot of it was ruled out. Like, it wasn't Soviet, it wasn't ours, they were anomalous. So it just continued on. And I'm going to be honest with you, after studying this a few years, I think I kind of live in a different world than most people, because I realize there's something extra into our reality. There's something more than what I grew up with, for sure, what I was taught. There are extra layers. I am positive of this personally. There are extra layers to this reality. There are other intelligences somehow interacting with humanity. And the evidence, the data is overwhelming. And when people say, oh, where's the evidence? Where's the data? They're just not looking. They're not putting any legwork into it at all. The digitized data is already there. It's overwhelming. There's a signal. I look at it like it's a contact signal. But here's what I did when I first started this research. I'm like, okay, well, if it's true that we are in contact with something, or something's in contact with us, then there must be a signal. There must be data there, say in newspapers or articles, whatever. It has to be there, right? And we're in the information age, so I should be able to find this stuff. Yeah, it's all there. It's huge. And that's why I've been posting it nonstop on X. And I first started to do it thinking, well, maybe they're going to censor it. Maybe they'll get it. The intelligence guys are going to delete this data. I came to the realization, though, that that's just unlikely. And in my opinion, and the reason why is because the saucers, the discs, the UFOs, it's super intertwined with each era's culture. So like in the 50s, during the nuke testing, they had these saucer swimsuits for men and women, right? So what are the intelligence guys going to do? They're going to try to censor out the flying saucer prints from the swim somewhere. And by the way, you look at the swimwear, some of the scans are pretty good. And you're like, there are all these weird shapes. And it turns out those shapes were what people were seeing in the sky at the time they were reporting. Yeah, they weren't paid. The thing is, at the scale of this is a form of the evidence itself. So if the claim is that we have intelligence guys, an army of them, for decades, really over a century, planting UFO articles, like, it's just ridiculous. Like, come on. By the way, they continue to this day. This hasn't gone away at all. It's just utterly ridiculous. I go to newspapers.com, put in quotes, flying saucer, put in quotes, flying disc, and you'll find a ton of articles over Hanford. Why would we plant articles about sensitive site overflights over Hanford complex, or Washington, D.C.? Why would we plan our own D.C.? We can go on it. Why would, Uncle, your uncle, they had all these, super obscure sightings, by a wide range of people, by American Indians, by, just tons of them. Like, you can actually sit there and find them and read them. Very few people who make claims actually have done the work. Like, they're blank claims, like, oh, it's all from intelligence, right? But have you actually sat down and read the articles? And how can you, like, it just doesn't make any sense. You could have.
Yeah, while there are certainly cases, like, to protect classified,
the YouTube,
like, projects.
Of course, the YouTube. For example,
Right,
here's you can go. It's like, for example, you think, oh, well, it was all U2 or whatever. Like, wait a second. When did they start flying the U2? When did they start flying U2? U2 wasn't flying in 47. U2 wasn't flying in the earlier 50s either. And by the way, the U2 would fly to the Soviet Union and then back, right? And it's an airplane. By the way, it's an airplane. And when it had to turn, it had to make really wide turns. It wasn't the UFO. It wasn't scooting around. It wasn't making 90-degree instant turns or from our perspective, disappearing. What they weren't landing in people's backyards, by the way. By the way, when they landed, sometimes it was radioactive. That's in newspapers too. I put all these clippings up.
Why was it radioactive?
So there are quite a few clippings of, and I've posted them on X over the years, of these things landing.
Oh, I thought you were saying the YouTube when it.
No. I'm saying there's quite a few clippings of witnesses claiming that these things would land, and then they would take off, whatever, and then they would make reports to the police. Air Force would get the reports. They would send personnel with Geiger counters, and they were radioactive. They're on newspaper articles, right? This is none of this is new. This has been going on for decades. By the way, some of those witnesses were then brought to DC, and they made big media about that too. So why would we fake that? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. By the way, why would the Soviet Union fake it? So I translated a book called UFO Glasnost. It summarizes the key Soviet UFO research. It was written by Dr. Marina Povovich, one of their top test pilots. She met Edgar Mitchell, I think it was in the 80s. Anyway, the Soviets had the same problem we did. They had overflights. They started seeing them on radar in 47. Their pilots were injured. Some of them were injured pretty badly. It's all covered in the book. It's all available in English now. It was actually published in German. Right as the Soviet Union was collapsing, the Soviet engineers and scientists started sending out their UFO information. The books are in various archives. I know where they're at. And sooner or later, we're going to get around to them and digitize them and translate them as time permits. It's tough, slow work. But anyway, this is nothing new. Yeah, I wouldn't call them alien. Aliens is a 1949, 1950s terminology. It's clearly not. It's that simple. There's no way it's that simple. NHI is even that doesn't really cover it, right? This is a phenomena for sure, and it's extraordinarily complex and it's multi-layered. And there were hoaxes in there. There were psyops in there. I have no doubt about it. As I was talking about earlier, in 1896 to 1897, there's a wide variety. If you go into the subject thinking it's just one thing, or I know the explanation for this, yeah, you're just gonna delude yourself. Like this is extremely complex. So I've studied the 40s and 50s intensely, but I don't claim to. This phenomena was off the charts, and here's what I found. For example, I read some books that were published in the 60s, right? And I would find scientists that were interviewed. I put this on X recently, early over last year. There's a guy named Dr. Holter. And so there was an interview with this guy named Dr. Holter. However, the author misspelled the name. He transposed some characters in the name or whatever. I think it was Holter or something like that. He put an H-O-L. He like misspelled the name. But anyway, he was a geophysicist, and he was involved in nuclear testing. And this guy, and this is in the actual interview took place in the late 40s, so the book wasn't published until the early 60s. It's a UFO book, right? I've published all this on X, so I'm just kind of just moving around, whatever. Anyway, as soon as I saw that Dr. Holter was talking about UFOs, and he said that there was an acclimation effort, they had a plan, that these things are real, they're flying over. And he said this around 1949. Well, anyway, I did a Google search. I'm like, Dr. Holter, geophysicist. What happened? I mean, and by the way, I misspelled the name, just like it was misspelled in the book. Boom, Google found it. Instantly went to Wikipedia. Dr. Holter was real. So I'm like, okay, he was a geophysicist. He was actually an influential, extremely inventive man in the heart monitoring space. He invented the Holter heart monitoring device. But it didn't mention much about his nuclear testing work, right? So I went to newspapers.com. I typed in his full name, and I started looking around like, oh shit, this guy was involved at the bikini testing at 46.
Bikini Atoll, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Was that Star Prime or something like that?
Yeah, he was deeply involved in the atomic program, late 40s and early 50s. And by the way, he had access to radioactive material legally because of his high security clearance, and he used that material in his biomedical research. He was one of the earliest biomedical researchers. So anyway, I realized that, by the way, this information was not in that UFO book I mentioned earlier. And I've posted about, if you want the actual book name, whatever, on X. Just look for Dr. Holter. Well, anyway, this information wasn't in the book, and his full name wasn't in the book. However, once I did the legwork and I just typed it into Google, and it popped all up, and I'm like, oh shit, here's a man with a high security clearance. He said he was involved in Project Sign. He said there was an acclimation program. He said that these things were real, and he was angry that the military didn't want to disclose it back then. So what are the odds? I'm just like here's the deal. The more I dig into the subject, the more I keep finding. It is like it's real. If it's not real, then we live in some sort of weird simulation where somehow the newspaper articles were like millions of them were planted in such a way that the topic is internally self-consistent, going way back to at least the 1890s and probably before that. And by the way, if we live in a simulation where articles are just somehow magically appearing or being planted, if intelligence is able to plant that shit, that is also an enormous story in and of itself. How are they doing it?
Or you're dealing with a phenomenon that operates outside of time.
Temporally. Yeah. And by the way, all that's really interesting, right? That's all.
By the way, funny we mentioned that. Islam, that's why they require people to memorize the Quran, is because it's, in the belief system that the jinn will go back and change it.
I see.
In the past.
Yeah. Okay. I understand. I get it. Well, here's the other thing too. All right. I've done more than newspaper digging. I've also digged in the public records, and anybody can do this. Just become an ancestry.com subscriber. It costs you about, I don't know, $30-$40 a month. And now you can be, an investigator of your past and things like your family and whatever. And it has like tons and tons of public record information in there. And so you can go and look at public records for whistleblowers, which I've done. You can go dig on. I'm sure the CIA does not like the shit. I'm positive of it, but it's completely legal because these people are deceased and they talk publicly. You're not, they've been long dead for many decades, right? So I looked at Don Phillips, I looked at Bill Hughouse, and they were where they said they were. And I've looked at I've looked at book authors who talked about them being involved in secret programs in the 90s, and they were where they said they were for sure. And the public records, the newspaper records, their claims, for what it's worth, they sync up. Don Phillips, Bill Hughouse, they had military backgrounds. I can't, prove they were intelligence, right? That's not there. But I can show that they were, either in the Air Force or the Marines, that they were photographed with generals. They were given commendations, they were well rewarded, they were recognized as serving well, right? And it's provable. This is all not conjecture. It's all provable. It's in newspapers, right? It's all there. They used to call this the record for a reason. So the record backs them up. They were in the military. And if you go look at what Don Phillips said on video, or Bill Hughouse also on video, right? Like, yeah, they said they were involved in reverse engineering programs and, advanced propulsion research, advanced simulators for flying discs starting in the 50s. That's, by the way, when the U.S. anti-gravity efforts went classified, apparently, at least according to Wikipedia. Normally I trash Wikipedia, but sometimes it is useful. Sometimes it's those articles that nobody pays attention to, actually. And even the ones that people do pay attention to, there's useful information there too. But anyway, my point is this is like, if you actually sit down and just ignore everybody, and just do the research, go look at the records that we do have. There's a history to this phenomena. It's all there. It impacted us. Whatever is contacting us is influencing our civilization, and the records of that are all over the place. It's unmissable signal.
So going back to Timothy Phillips, what exactly did he say?
Yeah, I don't want to click over, but he essentially said that they have on period specific paperwork, operation plans or plans for ET retrievals or ET or incidents involving crashed, anomalous craft, things like that. I'm not quoting him exactly, but I could click over but essentially that's what he said. And so I don't know if he's actually specifically stating that they found Psalm 101, which Psalm 101 was 1954, April 54, not 40s. So he's saying 1940s specifically.
And he said specifically DOD, which did not exist until
he mentioned
1947.
DOD several times. Yeah, and it's in the transcript that I got from YouTube. So
because before 1947, it would have been the Department of War.
So, that means if they're making plans, first it makes perfect sense they'd make plans about this, right? Something from space could have crashed in 1940s. Now, well, obviously wouldn't have been ours. So that's the other thing. First, you got to think about is, wait a second. V2 rocket was very crude, right? We were having a hard time just getting cameras up to 40 miles up in 46. So I was just reading those articles earlier. Like, just going 40 miles up was extraordinarily difficult on the V2, for sure. It's all over the newspapers. Just getting to space with a camera was like almost impossible in the late 40s, and that's just a tiny camera. So, what the Soviets, by the way, were, they actually, it's kind of interesting. The Soviets were having more luck with their V2 and their V2 people than we were. That's another whole rabbit hole, by the way. If you go look at the history of V2 testing and
they put Sputnik up first, right?
Yeah. They, for some reason, it's really interesting. Apparently, our rocket people, our Nazis, were not as good as theirs. It's really strange. There was a lot of testing failures in the late 40s. It's in official documentation, right? Constant failure after failure after failure. But the Soviets were having way more success. I don't know why exactly, right? But it's just really weird. You'd think we would have had more success. Maybe the Soviets are more driven. I don't know. But we also,
or maybe if this test fails, we'll shoot you.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite a motivator. Also, Skiff, one of the, I think it was a Senator Skiff. I think Skiff. Yeah. Anyway, I'm tired here. Yeah, he spoke a lot. He interviewed a bunch of people. I think it was in the 90s, right? And he talked a lot about our tests being interfered with. And
didn't he die of turbo cancer?
He did. Strangely.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, it appears that actually, here's what I'm kind of tippy-toeing around this, right? But June Crane, there's a book, Tell My Story, by Detective James Clarkson, and I've researched her quite deeply myself. I've kind of interrogated Detective Clarkson. I actually found a lot of newspaper clippings. She was related to her. She was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in the late 40s, early 50s. So was her husband, and she said that she was told by scientists and aviators and engineers and stuff from White Sands that the UAPs were thick as fleas back then. So they were so common that our personnel just stopped reporting them, right? And why would you report it if you weren't going to be listened to or you would be reprimanded, right? So this phenomena was, from what I can determine, it was slowing us down. It was interfering with our guidance, V2s and things like that. These things were crashing all the time, and it's possible that maybe the phenomena was interfering with us more intensely, or maybe it was only interfering with us, I don't know, versus the Soviets. And it's possible that, now let's just stop playing. We should all stop playing stupid. It's clear we were overflown in summer of 47, Farmington Armada in 1950, Washington, D.C., East Coast, July 52. Something was screwing with us intensely. And it was intimidating us very much. And it was interfering with our V2s. And then it seems plausible to me that maybe it was interfering with us more than it was interfering with the Soviets. And maybe that's why the Soviets got to orbit first. It's possible. It's just one of the things we have to open our minds, is my opinion. Like, unfortunately,
we had nukes and the Soviets didn't at that time.
Yeah, they had First Lightning. They had they called it First Lightning. I think it was like 49 from memory. I'm not a historian. I'm just I'm putting on my historian hat because I was going to comment this earlier. Is like, we have Richard Dolan. It's great, but the historians are MIA. They're gone. They're idiots. They're not paying attention to what actually happened in the past. They're just busy in their imaginary reality bubbles, right? They're blocking this phenomenon out completely. And so we have to do that until eventually, I hope, we'll get real historians in here who don't have their head in the sand and catch up, right? So, anyway, to cover history without including UAP is really a form of insanity, right? Because it happened, right? Our ancestors experienced this. We still are experiencing something with the mystery drones, right? We call them, every era has a different way of describing them, right? So it's like, flying saucers, flying discs, mystery airships, mystery airplanes, ghost rockets. Like we go on and on and on, right? So we should get smart here, right? If we approach, here's how I approach this problem: is I approach it like any other software problem I've been involved in, right? And I've been involved in some pretty interesting software problems over the decades. So I just ignore everybody, assume that for whatever reason they're either not over the target or they're purposely misleading you or just idiots. Just ignore them all. Go research it yourself and see what you can find with an open mind, right? And that's basically all I've been doing. Yeah, and I've been threatened a few times too, but they're subtle. They're mostly subtle threats, and I think a lot of it, if not all of it, is this topic makes people paranoid, and it's like an echo chamber, So, and sometimes maybe I wasn't actually being threatened. It was just more subtle, like, aren't you afraid you're going to get raided? Things like that because you have mystery drone videos.
Or like you get on a call with somebody and it's being recorded already.
Yeah, I got in a call, and I'm not going to say any names, but I got in a call from someone I owe me a DM with a few times, but had an interesting track record, right? Ex-military, and immediately the Zoom chat or whatever it was being recorded, and I'm like, what are you doing? What is this? I don't like this, but I'm gonna play the game. I'll play the game. Let's see what happens. But I know I'm being recorded, right? And I could have said, hey, bro, what are you doing, man? Or I should have just started instantly recording on my phone or something like that, right? Just like, all right.
If you played the game better, you'd ask them for a recording.
Well, I play. Sometimes it's like a chess game, right? Let's play the game. Let's see what's happening. I'm self-organizing. I was trained to work at a self-organizing company. I can wheel my desk to anywhere I want in the world. And okay, let's see what kind of game you're playing. I'll play that a little bit, and unless it starts burning me, right? But anyway, as soon as it was brought up that, oh my God, you could get raided because you have 1,000 mystery drone videos, boom, I put them up on archive.org. So at this point, yeah, that's a good point. Sean recommended that. He's like, you need to get the recording. But what I did, it basically changed the whole conversation. I'm now talking to whoever's watching the recording, is essentially what happened with that interview. It was just a bad move on their part, but whatever, I'll let it go.
Yeah, but the agency I suspect he represents, you don't want to have anything on a recording, because if you say the wrong thing, it's well, hold
on. The person I was talking with they weren't any kind of personnel. They were just some civilian. Right?
They said.
They were just some civilian. So whatever. Anyway, here's why are you going to gather intelligence about some idiot, recording videos off X? It doesn't make any sense. For mystery drones, by the way, they're FAA approved. And they don't even exist, right? They're just FAA-approved research drones, right? That's what we're told.
I'm surprised the Iranian motherships didn't counterattack.
Yeah. Notice that all went away. So if the Iranian motherships existed, where are they? Why isn't Israel bombing them, by the way? Wouldn't that be like a prime target?
They're super advanced. They're super advanced.
That would be a prime target. If I was Israel, I would be destroying the Iranian motherships because it's obviously a weapon platform, right? And then I'll be bragging about it, but it's nothing. They don't exist. It's all bullshit, right? Mm-hmm. So it's obvious, total 100% grade A bullshit. Yeah.
Should I tell my weird $100 story?
Tell it, yeah.
All right, this is crazy. I fully expect me to just be out $100, but here's something that I had some impulse, urge, and by the way, I don't have impulses or urges when it comes to money, right? Like, I think I've probably gambled in Vegas 3 times, and I start with $20, and as soon as the $20 is gone, I just get pissed off and I stop, and that's it. I'm not I don't gamble that way. I take calculated risks.
Yeah.
Okay. So over the last few days, I had this kind of I don't know if it's a dream or a subconscious idea that I need to spend $100 on lottery tickets. I need to spend $100 on lottery tickets. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I look at during the same period, I look at Lori Loftus runs this astrological channel. I don't know anything about astrology, but I went to her channel because she uses astrology to predict geopolitics and stuff like that. So anyway, I don't know if any of this stuff works. I'm trying to get her into an interview soon, so all of us collectively can understand it. Yep. But she did a reading for whatever my sign is, which is Scorpio, and there's this concept called chunky money in this horoscope for July. Chunky money is not money earned by your wiles or like your success. It's just money that comes from an unexpected source. Could be an inheritance. It could be, you pick up money off the ground or whatever. Anyway, there's this chunky money thing in that reading. Okay, so whatever, take that, put it aside. Then 2 nights ago, I hear this like loud, like cricket sound. Like it sounds like absurdly loud, so loud that I'm like, this has to be like a fire alarm or something. So I kind of go out in my hallway inside my house and I kind of track it down to a cricket. There is a cricket in the house. So don't know too much about it. Yeah, in Celtic and Chinese traditions, having a cricket in the house, as long as you don't kill it,
that's very good luck, supposedly.
It is good luck. So I'm like, okay, that's strange. And then today, again, I don't use the word lottery. I don't talk about the lottery. I don't play the lottery. I don't do all that kind of stuff. Okay?
Yep.
I'm like just looking at YouTube videos and I see this thing about like what to do when you win the lottery. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. And then it says like what you need to do when you have a lawyer for the lottery or something like that. I'm like, I don't watch content like that. I just don't. So I kind of just called my wife and I told her all about this stuff. I'm like, I'm going to give you $100 in cash. Just buy as many tickets as you can. Let's just see what happens. So it's an experiment. I fully expect to lose $100. For you.
Yeah, Sean told me this story earlier. I'm rooting for him. I was like, maybe you could we start talking about like how you could pull the first. What kind of tickets are you getting? Are you getting scratch off or what are you getting? What are you getting? You got to know.
I immediately executed. So we got a Super Lotto and we got Powerball.
Super Lotto. I'm not a lottery person. I know people that love lottery.
I'm not either, but I just know I have like 49 chances to win something.
Nice.
Okay, look, I fully expect it to go nowhere. I'm not like for people who are like chronic gamblers, I don't recommend it. But I'm fully expecting to lose $100 and just chalk it up. However, if I win big, I will not tell you.
Why not? Wow. Well, yeah, of course. He's concerned.
But there will be signs.
Nigerian princess will be emailing him. Yeah.
But there will be signs.
There
will be signs.
Got it.
Anyway, we'll see. This is the one time that I went completely against logic and ran with intuition. So this is a test of how good or bad my intuition is. Now, if I don't win, I will absolutely tell you. Nice. Or if I win small, I will share. Let me just looking through at some of these.
I'm so new to this video shit. I'm from the 80s and 90s. We didn't have any of this tech when I was growing up. This would have been
lottery
sci-fi.
Lottery numbers apparently get called tonight. So
if you got lottery, you got to watch the lottery, Sean. Come on.
No, I'll just wait until it's done and then calmly just.
You should have got some scratch offs, dude. Instant satisfaction.
Let's see.
Definitely. Yeah. How many people? I can't tell how many people we got on the stream.
Not many. It's like
not many.
64, something like that.
Welcome.
Across all.
Yeah, this is like a practice stream. I'm not used to this. I'm not. I keep looking at myself. I feel like an idiot while I'm talking. I got to look at Sean or whatever. I'm very new to this. My medium is X. That's where I'm most comfortable, right? So
Yeah, but you got a microphone now that works.
yeah, I have a microphone now, so I can. I have to get an arm. Sean's like, you got to go click on my affiliate link. Click and subscribe. You gotta click on the link so he gets the
Yeah, I could make 10 cents. I could make
scam.
I can make
Gotta
a
get the
dime.
scam. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe I got to get an arm. I guess I got to get more serious about this. Right. Turn my
Yeah, you
accent.
gotta support the grift. The grift.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun though. I do like talking to Sean. Sean's a great guy. I talk to him all the time. He's a good friend. I really like Sean. I
Yeah,
met him at
Gray
the
House
Soul
got a
Conference.
point. I did voluntarily pay taxes, but I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Chunky money, right?
We've been
Chunky
talking a
money.
lot. Sean and I talk a lot about how to grow his channel. I keep coming up with these ideas. I think I have some ideas. I haven't executed. I haven't had the time, but I have some ideas on how I could bring in views. We have to escape, or he has to escape the YouTube
The
algorithm
algorithm.
prison that he is in. He is in
The blue
prison.
hairs.
You don't
The blue
realize
hairs
this.
are keeping me down.
Yeah, they're
The
keeping
blue
him
hairs are
down
keeping me
big
down.
time. He doesn't get the views like all the other channels get, even though he has tons of content. Right? The guy is up, interviewing
See, you're
somebody
getting
new.
real time feedback about your new microphone. See, it was worth
Yeah, I had a
$110.
$35 Walmart special webcam before. I wasn't, to me previously it was just once a year I would do a Zoom call with somebody, in software. Nobody gave a shit. So yeah,
I
I
don't
have
know
a
if you
real
could talk about this, but are you
yeah.
gonna be on American Alchemy or what?
I'm open to being on anything really. I'm talking to I guess it's Jesse right now. And we'll see. I'm purposely not. Listen, I know this field is.
You're not seeking it out. I know.
I'm not seeking it out. Like this field is an intense field, and if it's real, and it certainly appears to be real, in my opinion, then it's. I need a drink, right? it's deep.
Well, by the way, I mean you know this because I shared it with you, but you got a shout out on American Alchemy.
Yeah.
By Dolan.
By Richard Dolan. I really appreciate it too. I met Richard Dolan at the Contact in the Desert conference. I spoke to him for about an hour. Oh, thanks, Al. Yeah, I spoke to him about an hour and a half or something like that. We got invited. All the speakers got invited to this really fancy shindig at the Contact in the Desert conference. And it was like the general's or the governor's suite. It must have been a $20,000 and I don't know, $10,000 a night suite. It was like an apartment, multiple levels and stuff. And Richard Dolan was there. All the highest of the high at Contact in the Desert were there. All the speakers and stuff. So famous people. Coldheart was there, right? And I brought my cousin with me, cousin Danny, and it was good. He had a good time. It was great. So anyway,
you didn't bring your cousin there. New Jersey brought you to the conference.
Anyway, yeah, Danny might be watching, so I don't know.
I know.
Danny,
that's
Danny had a great time. I brought my cousin to the Contact in the Desert conference, and he's never been to any UFO conference in his entire life. So he was like, "Whoa, what is this shit?" He really liked it. He represented New Jersey too, for sure. Absolutely. But he'd never been to a UFO conference. So watching him realize that there are thousands of other people who are interested in this topic, right? It blew his mind. He was like, what the hell? You mean, oh shit, there are other people that know about it? Because he's really into this topic. He's seen things out there in Jersey. He watched the mystery drones live, and he his family has seen things. Yeah, Richard Dolan kept recommending. He's like, Rich, you need to write a book.
You could just compile your Medium.
Yeah, I will. I'm working on it. I'm just basically doing what I would do in any other field. I'm gathering data, and I'm analyzing it and trying to figure out, okay, what the hell happened? And apparently,
Solite USX.
It's like sci-fi.
Woodbridge. Woodbridge, right? The Bentwaters. It's the Bentwaters incident.
Yeah, that's yeah.
UK in the UK.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Well,
I think it's actually near all the bases where the recent drone flap was.
Yeah. I've come to the conclusion that we're essentially, and I'm quoting Majestic document here, we're already in space. It doesn't matter who wrote this particular Majestic doc, by the way. We really are already in space. We're just on a giant rock. We just think it's normal. And once in a while, weird shit happens. And it's not just things flying overhead. People get strange dreams, synchronicities, visitations. At least they think they see things visiting them, contact, hypnagogic state messages, stream messages, etc., etc., etc. Healings, like Preston Dennett has covered in his books, and things land. People disappear apparently. And apparently we're like in a neutral zone. That's what Dr. Brandenburg talks about. He's been on your show. I think he's right over the target. We're just in this weird part of space where all these things are interacting with us, and I just kind of take it at face value now. So if I get in a chronology entry where it says that somebody claims they were given a message. Oh, Woodbridge, New Jersey. Okay. I recognize Woodbridge. I was like, what are we talking about here? Anyway, what I was saying was this is when someone says, okay, I had this strange encounter and they gave me this message and it was a warning about atomic testing or nuclear technology being abused, I'm taking it seriously. It fits in. We were abusing nuclear technology. It's all over the newspapers. It got so bad in the late 50s, early 60s that antlers from animals were becoming radioactive. They were becoming radioactive, dude. Like, it was bad. Milk was so toxic in the late 50s.
Strontium-90.
Yeah, it would appear in newspapers. Is it safe to drink milk right now or not in these specific areas? Dude, John Wayne was I think it was John Wayne was a downwinder while filming a video, not a video, a film.
Did he die of cancer?
Yeah, he was a downwinder, dude. He was, by the way, the test that he was downwind of was Dirty Harry, and that test was hours later. That's when the Kingman crash happened. So, and the rumor is, by the way, there's a rumor about the Kingman situation. The rumor was that, and it's just a rumor, who knows what, right? If it was real or not, that craft was going to a meeting where Majestic personnel were going to meet with them. So, and who knows, it might be just some stupid rumor that's not true. However, I get rumors to this day from very connected people that these meetings are still happening. I don't know what to believe. I never talk about them on X. What am I supposed to do? Nobody's going to believe me. But right. I pick up all kinds of shit to this day by people who are extremely connected. And I don't know what to believe. I've heard things like, and I'll just put it out there. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm just throwing it out there. I've heard that in the last 2 years, that there have been landings at Dover Air Force Base, and that the craft were moved to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and that there were meetings. And I have no idea if it's true or not. It could just be bullshit. But I'm just throwing it out there. Like, apparently, if that's real, then there are meetings happening already. They're happening right now. All right. I don't know. I'm like a vacuum. I'm just vacuuming up everything. And Sean knows this, by the way. I have gotten information. Sean's like, how in the F did you get that information? He's like, you must be a spy. What's going on over here? And I'm like, no, I got it from this forum right here. Here, go check it out. Go sign in. And yeah, it's all this information. Like, it's a flood of it. You can be like your own mini NSA, basically, right? It's not that hard.
Yeah, but who knows? Like, that those things could be true. They could also be social engineering to see.
It could be disinformation. It could be Russian information. It could be,
or just to see how far the rumor spreads, right?
Yeah. However, it's when over the decades you keep finding the same essential information through multiple sources, some of it extremely obscure, and it keeps reemerging. By the way, some of these sources, like, nobody alive has read, right? Like, there's freshly digitized articles on newspapers.com I don't post. So I picked up information like I can't even talk about here because you would get banned. Like, there's certain topics
it's too violent.
No, it's just there's certain medical related stuff. Like, I posted it on X though, or at least I've had friends posted on X.
You're talking about the procedure.
Yeah. I've picked up warnings about that topic.
Do you know who Edward Reardon is?
He's a remote viewer, right? Is that remote viewer?
He had a remote viewing session in 2017 where he kept repeating the term game of function. He's like, game of function.
Wow, really? I didn't know this.
That's it's on YouTube. You can go watch the.
That's an amazing hit. Is that before the pandemic?
It's 2017.
Oh shit! That was a warning.
And then he also had this vision of like amyloid clots inside.
Oh shit.
Same
That's
time.
yeah.
And then he has a picture that he drew of Fauci. And he's talking
Well,
about like my children are being released into the world. Like,
I went. So I've been to the Contact and Desert Conference a few times, and I like meeting the vendors there, and I like meeting, frankly, I like meeting the psychics there. It's fun, and I have a history of a GI condition, right? And it's mostly under control now. You know, I have to eat like crazy diet. I have to eat like a perfectly clean diet and stuff like that, or I don't feel good. I eat a diet that Sean would just barf over. Like I have to eat vegetables and healthy and stuff like that. So anyway, I went to a bunch of these psychics at the Contact and Desert Conference, and I didn't tell them who I was. I didn't say my name. I didn't say I talk about my medical, history, anything like that. Multiple psychics would point at my gut and say, "Hey, there's something there. There's something going on there." I've had it happen multiple times.
so like when I say children, I mean virus.
Yeah, be careful. Be careful what you say. The algorithm's watching you. And dude, you're already in an algorithm ghetto. So be careful what you say. Yeah, anyhow, we're just chewing the fat tonight. That's all this is about. I'm a little bit tired, I haven't eaten well in the last few days. So I told Sean, man, I don't feel too good. Right? My gut is, I could go months feeling perfectly, and then, I have like basically IBS sometimes, and it bothers me because I don't eat perfectly. I got to eat lots of onions and chili and thick, onion, like I said, onions are like green peppers, celery, all that shit. I have to make really healthy meals, but they get old, they get boring, right? I want to eat what Sean eats. He eats pizza. I can't eat
Not
that. It's not
anymore.
good. Well, he used to eat pizza.
Not right now. Not right now.
Yeah, he eats a carnivore. I don't know how he survives. Like I analyzed Sean's diet. I'm like, dude, where's your vitamin C coming from? How do you survive? I got him to take a multivitamin though. That's a new development. He's taking the one. Yeah, he's taking the one I'm taking. So it's a food-based multi. It's an old-fashioned multi. Yeah, he eats cheeseburgers supposedly without the buns. I don't know if I believe that.
That's right. This is the one.
That.
This is the one.
Oh yeah, Mega Food. That's a great multivitamin, by the way. But not all of them are though. Some of them.
Not that I'm not advocating it because there's no debate here. We're not.
It's just a basic multi. It's not a mega thing or anything crazy. It's really simple, right? But it has folic acid in it, not the newfangled stuff. So not methylfolate. But that's a whole different topic, a whole different rabbit hole. But anyway, yeah, I don't even know what we're talking about right now. Yeah, Sean said he's losing weight though. So, and by the way, like and subscribe. I know this. Are we? By the way, is this just on X tonight, or what's the deal?
No, it's on X and it's on YouTube. It's on Facebook.
Oh, then you gotta like and subscribe, man. Sometimes he gets unfollowed. I don't know what's going on there. It's automatic.
Oh yeah. That's a good point. So,
yeah, good. That's good.
Yes.
Minerals. Yep.
So if you think you're subscribed, thank you, but please verify.
Please check. You gotta
trust. But verify.
Trust but verify. The algorithm is pinching him
because the YouTube algorithm YouTube will unsubscribe you for no reason whatsoever.
I have a theory. I think if we just went to a bunch of forums and posted Sean's shows to those forums, we could I could get him more viewers. I just haven't tried it yet, but I see other shows successfully using this technique, so I don't know why Sean couldn't do it either.
I've tried it. It worked a little bit for remote viewing on Reddit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It failed utterly for UFO. They'll just delete. They just instantly delete it on UFO forums. By the way, Solite US Expat shares it on. I can never remember. What's it? Before It News.
Okay.
He shares it on Before It News, so I get a ton of views from Before.
Nah, there's no Adderall. There's no Adderall, man. I'm very careful at this point. I almost died from a GI condition years ago, and I'm extraordinarily careful now what I eat. Matter of fact, I actually should have taken a multivitamin years ago, and I didn't because I was so careful, and that actually hurt me because I took antibiotics to heal this condition, right? And the antibiotics wiped out my gut biota badly. It was like a nuke. And then turns out that your gut microbiota produces B vitamins. And, if you don't get those B vitamins over time, you're going to feel really shitty. Let me tell you, really bad. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. So yeah, take that freaking vitamin. It's a good insurance policy. I'm just looking at the comments.
Healing. Yeah, the post on healing.
Yeah, this is Solis. He said, "Get a really hot, smart girl on your show." I keep telling him that. I like, you want to get your show going? You know what to do. You know what you got to do. Yeah. Anyhow, I think we could astroturf. You know, a lot of the stuff on X, by the way, just so you know, a lot of it feels very astroturf to me in the UAP space. You know, I don't want to be controversial. I don't want to say any names or anything like that. A lot of it feels very artificial, right? Like there's some coordination behind the scenes. Maybe you've discussed this on your show. I don't know. But a lot of it feels very.
I mean, what you want to see something
planned.
hilarious? Because I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it, but my crew will do it. Okay, so guys and gals, which UFO podcast do you think are astroturfed? I'm not gonna lead anything. I'm just gonna let them.
I think I know what one of the shows is going to be, and I'm not trying to be negative or anything. I think the shows are great.
I'm not putting anything out there, but you watch. Here we go. Oh no, Spiritual Ascension is just waiting. Come on, guys. You guys know.
I think there's going to be some trouble. Some good trouble here.
Oh yeah. All right. So what's AstroTurf? So you ever see a channel that like a year ago didn't exist, and then suddenly it's got 50,000 subscribers and blah blah blah, like, and you're like, I don't understand this. That's what I mean. But AstroTurf means it's not natural, like something like somebody's doing something behind the scenes. Oh,
There's a lot of astroturfing on X. There's a ton of it. I mean, I can spend 12 hours, 14 hours on X.
That's the first vote. I'm not going to say it. I'm just Conspiracy. I never heard of that one.
Anyway, I was saying I can monitor X very closely, and I could start essentially. I've done this before, kind of like running UFO Twitter, right, for fun,
Come on, guys.
For fun. And you get the feel. You can get a feel for UFO Twitter. At least I can run my little corner of it anyway, and you can get a feel for what's going on, and you can sense the turfing behind the scenes. You know, those little private signal chats are going and stuff.
You see this one? This one. What's the term for?
Sean is the opposite of astroturfed. He's not astroturfed at all. There's, to my knowledge, nobody's helping them. If anything, they're suppressing the guy. So, and I look at a show and I see all the content he's got. It's insane. He's got all these amazing guests and shit. You should be doing way better than you are, for sure.
Maybe I'm just really bad at it. That's possible.
I think you need to astroturf yourself, just like all the other shows are doing, man. I was told there's something new happening on that UFO Twitter. Okay, I'm not going to say any names, but I have new data here. Sponsored posts. How many views do you think they get, Sean? How many views do you think you get for $100?
Well, let's keep that. That might be something I choose to exploit at some point. So we don't want.
I don't see why we can't talk about it though. I mean, it's just standard.
Because once other people start to exploit it, it doesn't work as well anymore.
Well, I mean, it's not a secret that sponsored posts are coming to UFO Twitter, right? Or what used
Logan,
to be
I think they were both like high quality channels. I would definitely say that. Like both Jesse and Area 52, high quality channels.
They're very high quality channels. I like the Good Trouble show too. I think it's great. You know, but it's not a secret that there's some planning that goes on behind. I'm trying to be very politically correct here behind that stuff.
I mean, you already. So we got 3 so far. What else? What else, guys? Come on. You didn't have to volunteer that, but that one's pretty obvious because there's like a strong tie to the Democratic Party. Right.
I forget what the point I was making earlier, but I've had a lot of fun on X, you know, raging against Arrow. I think that's great. You know, fighting the good fight against Kirkpatrick, you know, that was awesome. Oh yeah, I was talking about to sponsor something new coming. I'm just gonna talk about it. Doesn't matter. It's already happening, right? It's nothing to do with you or me. Yeah, sponsor posts are coming to UFO Twitter now. And I've been gathering the data and watching this happen. And you can get with $100. I've seen an individual get 102,000.
Came out of literally out of nowhere.
Came out of nowhere and who has roughly 1,000 followers, right? And he's posting, and they're good quality posts. I'm not saying they're not bad. They're not bad posts or anything like that. But I've seen that fellow get. I don't know how much he spent for this. I think it was like 700,000 or 900,000 views up to on one of his posts, and it was sponsored. So the numbers that he's getting, I'm like, what the hell is
The
this?
question though is he converting? Like if he's getting 100,000 views, why does he only have like he should have more than 1,000 followers, like a lot more.
I think he is. It's just relatively slow, right? I guess I don't know. He's not been active more than I think he came around. This particular gentleman I'm referring to
Like
started
three
posting around
to 6 months ago.
Yeah, not that long ago, right? He kind of emerged out of nowhere, and he's a great guy. And if he's watching, he knows who I'm talking about. He's a great guy and everything. We're just talking about like the sponsored posting. It's not being exploited yet heavily anyway in the UAP space, but it's coming. $100 will get you a lot of views. Is what I'm trying. And I never do this. I'm not trying to sell books. I have no posters, no hats. I'm not. I have a software.
These guys are brutal. These guys are brutal. By the way, I know Dan.
I can't repeat some of these comments.
He's reached out to me sometimes for like pre-interviews for some of his guests. He's a really good dude. He's a really good dude. I don't think he's astroturfed at all. He's like spent
Logan Clark's point. All roads lead to consciousness. Yeah. I completely agree with you. The more you look
Michael, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying he's a really good dude. I really like him.
Yeah, Logan's comment, all roads lead to consciousness. I believe you're absolutely 100% spot on. The more you research this topic, let me just be honest here and blunt. If you research this topic very deeply and you learn, you find new things and you post them, they will contact you.
So Solite US Expat is ready. Can't you get on Danny Jones' show? No, I don't. Like I haven't in this topic. I haven't done anything interesting enough to. I have a really weird, eclectic background, but there's nothing. Like I haven't had any aliens in the bedroom that I recall. Right? I haven't had any.
Nothing obvious, anyway.
Yeah, my stuff is all subtle.
He has like I don't know. I think you've talked about this. All the
probably
the
you can anything I told you. You can
yeah. The bird. He has a bird right behind him. I mean, it's not. He has like he's like has this affinity for birds. I've watched it myself. It's not. He's not lying. I've seen it. I have seen him.
Well, you saw the owl in the countdown, right?
I've seen videos you sent me about owls, but I've seen it in person at Catalina Island.
The countdown, like the countdown at the very beginning.
Oh, I wasn't watching that close, no. But I've seen you at Catalina Island, and I've watched the birds interact with you there. He's like the Birdman over here. I don't know.
I'm going to snap it for a second, and then I'll get here. All right.
Is that a real video you've made? Is that one of your videos? Oh, that's nice. That's cool.
Yeah, he was. That's the owl that was on my fence.
Yeah, I be honest. I didn't take you seriously with your bird thing. I was like, whatever. If that's your thing, that's your thing, right? Whatever. I'm not. But I've seen it with my own eyes. I'm like, what the hell is going on with this guy? It's like Alcatraz over here. What is this shit? So yeah, I mean, you have. Well,
you said you were about to say something about Catalina. You should.
Yeah, I was at Catalina Island. Sean was there with another guy, a friend, and we got a nice. Was it a yurt? I think it was like a yurt or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Up in the hill, it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful up there in Catalina. I've been to Catalina several times, not hiking or just hanging out really there because the hills are crazy there. Anyway, Sean was there, and we got to the yurt. No, we were in town, and I think it wasn't Avalon. It was something else, right?
Yeah,
maybe it was Avalon. I don't remember. It was a little town there, right? There's like a couple towns at Catalina Island. And so Sean's there, and the birds just kept following this guy around, and they would come up, and they would like it was just the strangest interaction in town and near the yurt too. And by the way, I've been to Catalina several times. I've never had one interaction with any birds there, and the friends that came with me. I had nothing. We've seen it.
And then our companion, like we both bought new sleeping bags, and every night I would just every morning I wake up, I roll it up and put it in. He just left his on his cot, and remember the squirrel went in there and shit in it.
No, I don't remember that. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
My cot was fine. I didn't have any, well, I don't think there's any problems. I'll be honest. I couldn't sleep in we had a yurt thing, whatever. I couldn't sleep in it because they were snoring. I just couldn't sleep in it. Right. So turns out the yurt next to us was unoccupied. So I'm like, oh, screw it. I'm just going to go over there and get some sleep.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. Yes. I've seen decades ago, I was with my ex-wife, and I was living in a house next door to where I grew up. My family was there. My mom, who's passed away, was there. My father was there. I got a call on the phone, old-fashioned phone, and she's like, "You got to come over right now." And right before I got this call, I said to my ex-wife, "Something feels weird. It's like the gates have opened up or something." I just told her offhand, like, "This feels weird tonight." Anyway, I got this call from my mom. She's like, "Come over right now. Never, ever get calls like this." So I went over there. This is in Gloucester City, New Jersey. I go into the house. It's an old house. It's like a 100-year-old house. And I go in the kitchen. And every single drawer, everything was wide open, like unnaturally, just boom, opened up. And my mother's in there, and my father's in there looking at me, and I'm looking at them. What the hell is going on over here? And they said they just walked in and it was all opened up. And they weren't the type of people that did stupid shit like that. They did care less about paranormal anything, really. But there was that incident, and I saw that myself. So I don't know what happened, but the weird thing that freaks me out is that I predicted something weird was going to happen, and I had no idea what. And then years later, I was in the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. I was hiking the Petona Trail. It was about a 50-ish mile hike. I was hiking alone, and I wound up approximately halfway through at Brendan Bryn State Park or campground. I think it's the campground there. And it's a nice little campground. Nobody was there. This is in fall 2018. So I go into this campground in the middle. It wasn't the middle of the night. It was like 7, 8, right after darkness, but completely dark. And the nearest human was many miles away. Nobody there. It was all shut down, but I did have a spot. I'd ordered whatever. So I was looking around for my camp spot because I wanted to be like, I'm like a good camper. I'm going to go to the exact spot I ordered online, from the state of New Jersey and all that shit. So I'm hunting around in the middle of nowhere in this campground. Nobody's there. I'm kind of freaked out. I look up and I see a triangle in the sky. And it had 3 white lights. But what caught my eye was it had a central pulsating light that was going through all the colors of the spectrum. It was a large pulsating light in the middle. Now, I didn't actually see a triangle. I saw the 3 lights at the apex of what I thought was a triangle, and I saw the central light. And I got to emphasize this. It was pulsating and going through all the colors of the spectrum in a unique way I had never seen in my entire life. And the other thing, it was making 0 noises, nothing. It was right over the treetops. So I brought up my phone. I'm like, oh, that's got to be a freaking UFO. I got to get this. So I get my phone out and I start trying to record it, right? And I first, I got it up there and I'm like, I cannot get it to focus. Nothing. I couldn't get it, but I still have the video, and I did get the audio, and there's nothing on audio. And it lasted, I guess, around 15, 20 seconds or so. So here's what happened. I'm like, I freak out and I'm like, oh shit, that was weird. That was some shit. So I freak out and I'm like, there's no freaking way I'm camping out in the middle of the darkness now. There's no way. I was really freaked out. So I found the camp spot right next to the bathroom with a light. And I'm like, well, if they're coming, at least we'll be able to see them coming, right? And I set a big fire. I started a big fire in the fire ring. But man, I was freaked out that night. It was weird. I had horrible dreams that night. I hardly slept. I had dreams that night, and then there were just dreams, right? I don't know what happened, but it was just stupid dreams that something had landed and walked. And this was years ago. That I wasn't doing UFO research or anything like that. I didn't think this was real back then. And I had dreams. They're just stupid dreams, right? Because I have read my share and seen my share of documentaries and stuff like that. In Search of in the 70s, with the Star Trek actor and whatever. But anyway, I had dreams that something landed and a freaking, something was walking across the field, and that was just to freak me out. Anyway, I woke up at like 5 a.m. As soon as light got up, I woke up and I got my ass out of there. I'm like, I'm never camping in this campground again. There's no way in hell. No deal.
Should we tell them about the dream experiment, or just leave that?
Yeah. So here's what's happened. You know, I did this, start doing this research. I'll just be honest, right? Whatever. I can be honest here. And I started finding new information about Bob Lazar, new newspaper clippings showing that there was apparently, as far as I can determine, there really was a Department of Naval Intelligence. Maybe it was like a fake department or something like that, right? But there were individuals, well, there was at least one individual showing up in the mid 80s before Lazar came out. It's in a clipping, it's in a series of clippings in a court case in Eastern Washington. And I posted all about this stuff. It's all out there. So if my friends that in Australia are listening, what is that called? Pine Gap? Then this is all on X already. So anyway, all these clippings are on Medium too. So I found new information. I found that, there was somebody who showed up trying to get his mortgage, through the government. And he said, I'm from the Department of Naval Intelligence. He showed paperwork and they arrested the guy, right? And they got him in court and everything. And there was a legendary reporter in that courthouse, and we got the clippings. So we know the Department of Naval Intelligence existed. There's a very high degree of probability that whatever it was, some fake thing, whatever, it existed. They were telling people it existed, or somebody worked for it or something. Well, anyway, I posted all this shit on X, and I started getting strange. I mean, they're just strange dreams. Maybe they're nothing. Maybe they're just stupid dreams, right? It's a weird, spooky topic. But I started to get very strange dreams. I was remote viewed by someone, and they proved it to me.
They told you exactly what you were doing in a very specific way. Apparently.
Yeah, I mean, anybody can claim the remote viewing you. They can say, "Oh, you were doing blah 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 blah." Anybody can do that. But I was successfully remote viewed, so it's like, whoa. And I told my brother about this stuff, and he doesn't believe any of this stuff. He's like, "That's all bullshit, Rich. You're just being followed, obviously." Like, dude, there's no way I'm being followed. That's just insanity. Plus, the information that they provided would have been very hard to get, even if I was being followed. Like, what the hell? So, I was remote viewed several times, and they proved it to me. And then, I can just
unless to play devil's advocate, they sent like a team.
It's possible, or it's just a random hit. Maybe they got lucky. Though the probability of these specific obscure pieces of information that they would get that are low, in my opinion. They're very low. And this is not information online. There's not any photographs. It's not like, if they were spies or they had my data, like NSA or something, like they could just see it there. No. They proved it to me that there's something to this remote viewing. That's my opinion anyway. There's some people out there that are incredibly good remote viewers. So I don't know how it works, but they can do it. And if they want to do it and they want to prove it to you, they can do it. They can do that too. I've had some interesting dream experiences too, just very intense. So ever since starting this research, extremely intense, vivid dreams. For example, in in my life, I started to have dreams where I could smell and sense things. Like I know what it feels like to ride. This sounds crazy. It's just a dream, but I know what it feels like to ride a Falcon 9 rocket to orbit. I know what it smells like. I know what the rocket smells like up close. I know what it feels like to be on the rocket in orbit, and it was all a dream. I know what it looks like and feels like to be in orbit. Orbital motion feels like, things like that. I started to have these extremely intense, vivid dreams, and maybe they're just dreams, right? Whatever. I don't know, but that's just an example. I can't hear you, Sean.
But you and I ran an experiment.
Okay. Yeah, Sean ran an experiment.
With your consent.
Exactly. Sean gave me a heads up. He's like, Rich, I can do this. I can influence dreams. So
no, I didn't say that. Let's
No. I think you were talking I think you were pretty confident that you could do it.
I'm still not confident about that.
No, I'm pretty sure you were confident. Well, anyway, from my memory, I'm pretty sure you gave me a heads up that you were going to appear in my dreams. I'm pretty damn sure of this, actually. I'm positive of it.
But I said I would appear as a certain thing.
You said you would appear as an owl, I think.
And then
hold on. No. Here's what happened. From my memory, you said you would appear. You're going to influence my dreams, right? And so I'm like, whatever. Okay, cool. So that night, I went to sleep. I had horrifying dreams of being tortured by a freaking alien. It was just like a stupid dream. It was nasty. It went on for hours. Went on
Like
for hours.
grays, right?
It was a gray specifically, like what a traditional gray. And I've never seen any of these things in real life or anything like that, right? It's just a dream. Everybody has seen a gray in movies and TV and things like that, and on stickers and whatever. So anyway, I had a weird dream that night. I'm like, what the hell? It was intense and it was disturbing. And I told Sean the next night, I'm like, or next day, whatever. I'm like, hey, dude, don't do that again. don't do that. That's not cool. Whatever the hell you did, you know.
I just but like my intent going to sleep, because I don't remember what happened, right?
Yeah.
Was that I would appear to you as an owl and then I would morph into myself.
Yeah, and the strangest thing, there's books about this where individuals, and I've posted some of these books on my X account and they're on Amazon. People that they claim to be in groups, and some of the people see grays while other people see owls. And so isn't that happens a lot, apparently. So apparently, as it goes, perhaps these creatures, these beings, whatever they are, these biorobots, I don't know, they can influence minds, but they have limits, right? They can only influence so many minds at one time. So like if there's a group of 3 people, maybe 1 or 2 people will see an owl, but 1 person will see a gray. And I find that fascinating. That to me indicates if it's real and if there seems to be something to it, given the scale of reports that we have a lot of them, that maybe these things have limits. They can only influence so many minds at one time, right? So, and there's some really good book. I've posted this book, you know, it has owls on it and stuff like that. So anyway, yeah, how are we doing on the show? We're over. Yeah, I didn't plan on being 2 hours.
50. Yeah, we should.
How many people have tuned in? Yeah, I gave permission. I guess I did. Yeah, I gave permission to enter your dream state. So they took that as permission and abducted me. Nah, I didn't abduct me. At least I don't have any memory of abductions, anything like that. I have had some very strange dreams. And so what I do now, I don't do research at night. I don't do research for sleeping. Only in the day. And I have to like cleanse my palate, you know, and I've slowed down too. I'll be honest with you. I now only do bursts, and right now I'm just focusing on newspapers and stuff like that. I'm not going super deep. I have a bunch of new events to add to my chronology data, and I need to do an update on that. And I purposely have just paused. And I also, I have an active chronology right now. I have an app online. It's been there for years now. It's like UFO-search.com. Yeah. What's up?
Are you going with Darklings? I'm already making my shirts.
Darklings. I don't know about the Darklings. It's none of my business. It's just show.
I actually ran this by Rich, and you know,
I don't know. I have to. I'll sleep on that. Not so sure about that.
I don't think he needs to sleep.
But maybe you need a stick. You need a thing. Get more viewers. I don't know. If you can see more viewers, Sean, maybe you should do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many people do we got? I can't see the stats. How we go? 60
people.
Yeah.
So 20? I just checked. On YouTube, it was a total of 177 views.
Oh, that's not bad. Yeah. That's pretty good for unplanned, you know.
Look at Tupacabra has another Thick Whites video on.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, by the way. I think he's a great. His videos.
I would love to interview him. I think he's great.
Yeah, he's great. His shit is awesome. Like, I don't know how he does it. And the Thick White thing, I wanted to retweet that so bad, but
you can't.
It's like I also have software followers, and they might get mad at me for tweeting some of that. So I'm like, I want to tweet this.
On X, it's like 47 views, something like that.
Yeah, that's fine. So, hey, we got some views, right?
Again, it's not. There's nothing on here to indicate that you're here, right? It just has like
we're just messing around. So yeah. By the way, I'm only
like low stress. You know.
Yeah, I've only. So with me personally, I don't know.
You're not getting a shirt. You're not getting a Darkling shirt.
That's okay. Yeah, I have. How do I say this? Yeah, I've been remote viewed, proven to me, which means nothing to anybody else. It just means something to me. So I am very confident personally the remote viewing is real. I have met Ingo Swann in the 90s, and I have seen what he was able to do personally, specifically with my ex-wife. So I've witnessed what he can do, what he could do. It was amazing. That dude was here's really quick what happened. I know we're running late, but I went to a UFO conference in 97, 98 in central New Jersey. And my ex-wife, her son's girlfriend, and I went, and I wasn't married at the time. Anyway, so we go to this conference. It's a small conference. I guess there's like 40 people, something like that, in this little conference, and just like hotel and stuff like that. But there's some famous people that were there. Steven Spielberg's Taken, the producers and shit were there, right? Bruce Maccabee was there. I met him. I met Paul LaViolette, book author. That's kind of like a esoteric kind of physicist, book author. I met Ingo Swann. So I go up to Ingo Swann. I'm like, hey, please sign your book, Penetration. And he was signing the book, and he's talking to my ex, and he's like, something horrible. Oh my God, something horrible is going to happen tonight to you, and to your family, or something like that. And I was there. I witnessed this, and he told her specifically that. And she's like, oh, well, that's not good. And so we went back to the hotel, and something horrible did happen. It was her son's girlfriend had an emergency. Had to go to the hospital. It was really bad. And so something horrible did happen. And Ingo Swann predicted that a few hours before. So, and, again, you don't have to believe me. It happened. But I understand. I know what happened. So all these little events like this happened to my family and I. My father, decades ago, he used to live at his house in Deptford, New Jersey. And that house was haunted as shit. So they would hear doorbells ringing, front doorbell ringing. And then they'd go to the door. Of course, there's nobody there because there wasn't a doorbell. It was removed years before. That was happening in the 60s and shit. And yeah, I grew up in that house partly, by the way. It was a very haunted house. There's shit that happened in that house. It was weird. There were the attic. Turns out I've learned years later, decades later, the house, I spent a few years in the 80s growing up in this house in Deptford. And this house was old. It had chicken feather insulation, right? And in the attic, my half uncle, who's older than me, he's passed away. Him and his friends were doing like satanic rituals and shit, apparently up in the attic. And this was like in the 60s, before I was born. Well, anyway, decades later, my brother and I were on the second floor of this old house and shit. And we heard all this weird shit going on in the attic, all this commotion, all these knocks, like scratches and stuff. And we got out of there. We're like, what the hell? Nobody was there but us. So we didn't know at the time that my half uncle had been with his friends, had been doing weird shit in that attic. That house was haunted as hell. There's a zillion stories we could tell about this house. This house, by the way, it was weird. It was built so long ago that it didn't have sewer. It didn't have septic. So it had a pipe that just ran to the river right next door. The river's like this river. And by the way, the river, the stream, this is a freaky house. And it still exists, by the way. The stream goes through what is now the Deptford dump. Okay. So like it's a corrupted area. The whole area is just corrupted, man. And there was a swamp area behind this house. And the swamp was apparently haunted too. And it gets worse. It gets worse. So I have I think it's my uncle. And yeah, he had seen something back there when he was a child or a young man. It was he called it like reptilian, like in the swamp behind this house. And it gets more interesting. I've gathered all these stories from all my family and extended family. In this house in Deptford, or near it, my father in 1967, before he went to Nam, he had a UFO sighting. He was at this house. He was looking up at the swamp area towards the Deptford High School, I think. And he had saw a flying saucer back there for what he called a flying saucer for several minutes. And he was alone. So, it's just him. And he never tells us anybody, but really close family. And he said it lasted several minutes. And I had a chance to talk with him. He's an elderly man now. And he earned 4 Battle Bronze Stars in Vietnam and stuff like that. So he has nothing to gain by telling stories like this. He was deep involved in the VFW and whatever. Anyway, I asked him like, well, okay, I saw this thing, and I asked him all the details with the lights and whatever. But I asked him finally, like, do you think, did you get any sense it was trying to communicate with you in any way? And he's like, you know what? Nobody ever asked me that. I think maybe it was. So it deeply affected him, by the way, to have that sighting. He told us about that in the 80s. My brother and I, we were young kids. So anyway, I could just go on this particular house that now that I'm telling this silly story, I'm now realizing I grew up in like a demon haunted house. So No hitchhiker effect though. Nothing, nothing ever happened after I left that house. Probably was just
I
swamp.
just swamp gas.
Probably was, Yeah, sure. I guess that way. I'd like to think it was. No, the house itself was totally crazy haunted. There's more stories, that family and extended family and or just unrelated people who visit the house would see. So, yeah, I'm a believer. I just out of my own personal experiences, I've had or my family have had a lot of weird, just seen and witnessed weird things, or had strange dreams, premonitions. Runs my family as well. Psychic premonitions, warnings about danger or people going to get maybe die or get sick. Might make another. This is not the best story, maybe, but my father in the 70s, after getting out of Nam, he went and got married. The marriage did not last long, and for whatever reason, he didn't get along with her, or she didn't get along with him, probably. And they got divorced. She took him for everything, which wasn't much, and except like his truck. And he got mad at her, and he said, and he's kind of a bastard, to be honest. He said to her that you're going to die. You're going to die long before me, and it's going to be a horrible death, bye. I guess one of the last things he said to her, actually, and so it turns out I remember the night a few years later. I was in Oakland, New Jersey, and I'm a young boy, like early 80s, and we got a call, and she had passed away with 5 other people in a car accident and a bad death. It was bad. So I was like, oh, geez. Yeah, he predicted that. And turns out, as an elderly man, I got to talk to him a little bit, and I'm like asking him some questions. And it turns out that it runs in our family, those kind of things, strange dreams about, or premonitions and stuff like that. Yeah, I have nothing to gain by telling these little stories, by the way. I have much to lose, but, hey, they're just dreams, right?
Yeah.
That's all they are. And it could be just random,
Yeah,
so.
people are reminding me I'm going to be on Outer Realms tomorrow. I have no idea what I've got myself
Outer
into.
Realms.
It's another YouTube channel / I think it's a radio.
It's good. You're getting some cross domain shit going there. Increase your viewership.
Yeah, I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it.
Why not? Yeah. I'm leaving things out. I'm actually holding back. Yeah,
No,
I've
good.
been, but nothing. Like I gotta say, nothing Preston Dennett like that. Like nothing. Just strange subtleties, like synchronicities. For example, I'll give you another example. A few weeks ago, I walk out my house. I go walk to the store, and I was feeling in an interesting state. Weird streams were happening, things like that. So I walk out, boom, synchronicity happens. A dog escapes from its pen and its backyard. I save the dog. I bring the dog back to its owner. It's just like a block away. It's like, okay, sure. I walk to the store. I walk out of the store, get my groceries, and I walk out. Another dog escapes from its owner, runs right towards me. I'm like, okay, that's strange. 2 in one afternoon. Within an hour. And okay, then it gets even weirder. So I save that dog, and I walk back to my house with the groceries, and I get to a light I use all the time. It's a dangerous light. As I walk up to the light, there's a woman and her, I think 3, maybe 4 children at the light, and they're not paying any attention at all. And I was a crossing guard when I was a kid. I was trained to be a crossing guard, right, in Jersey. So what happens is the light turns red for us and green for the highway, right? Whatever. And it's a nasty road. Anyway, the kids start crossing, and I'm like, oh shit. Like there's a truck right there, and these kids are starting to walk into the truck, and it's green. And I knew that this is not good. I had to do something. So I stepped in, and I started yelling like, no, stop, get back. I yelled as loud as I could, and they got back. So I had, within an hour and a half or so, I had 3 timed crazy synchronicities, right? And you could say they're just coincidences, right? Just coincidences. But I was like, oh shit, if I wasn't there, something really horrible could have happened, because the mother was not paying any attention, and those children were not paying attention at all. They were just going to walk into that street, that highway. So Yeah, I had weird things like that happen. And it all, by the way, a lot of this stuff picked up immensely once I started doing this research. Kind of like Keel, you know how the author John Keel, right? He had a lot of strange things started happening to him.
Yeah, that's
So
when all this bird stuff started happening to me.
yeah, if you get deep into this topic, I'm convinced personally, it will, if you really truly start getting deep into it and researching it and posting, I'm convinced that that's part of it. We're doing something new. We're researching this topic. We're finding new information, or information nobody alive has seen anyway, posting it on X or whatever, and then it's being seen by tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people. Our minds. That's a new thing in this space. Like back in the old days, Keel would write a book. Maybe it would take years, and then it will be seen, read, over many, many, many years or decades after the book's published. But now we get this big spike. We can get things in front of minds immediately, and it's seen by thousands and thousands of people. And those are consciousnesses or intelligences, right? And who knows what they're interacting with? We don't know. I don't know. This is new. So and I know for sure that there are individuals experimenting with that kind of posting, right? And it's all very innocuous, nothing. Like they do experiments, like they'll post images, like they kind of call them sigils, like shapes, or I have nothing to do with this. I just noticed some people doing things like they do experiments. Well, they'll post with intention images or shapes or patterns and stuff like that. And I don't know exactly what they're doing, but they're doing experiments like that. So they're interacting with many minds. I think famous occultists like Crowley or Jack Parsons would be amazed at what we can do today. Think about it. What we can, dude, we can act. We have God mode for newspapers, dude. We have every book ever published virtually. You can just get like that, right? I mean, public records. You can be like freaking detective. You want to be a detective? No problem. You can find anything online, right? It's just insane. So if you want to dive into a mystery, like if you want to become a cold case detective, you can do it right now for nothing. You can just do it. You can go. I know people that, by the way, I bring this up because I know cold case detectives, and I tell them what I do. I'm teaching them what I do to find UFO info or information about the UAP space, or whatever. So the stuff that we're doing in the UAP space is actually helping cold case researchers, like really cold cases, like 20, 30-year-old murders and things like that. So I met with them at the Contact in the Desert conference, and I gave them a whole bunch of recommendations and techniques and things like that. Things that I'm sure the CIA people don't like. I'm sure they don't like it all. But it's all completely legal, ethical stuff.
Well, I mean, we know for a fact that members of or intelligence people have met with Sam Altman recently.
Yeah, what was that about? Which one are you talking about? Oh, wait. Oh, OpenAI. You were talking about OpenAI, right? Yeah. Yeah, actually.
I mean, they posted pictures of themselves on X with.
That's true. That's true. That's not a secret. That's true.
Well, it might. Look.
You're reminding me. Yeah, I mean, we
don't even know if this person's intelligence, but it's highly likely.
You got to question if they're intelligence. They're probably either adjacent or intelligence or ex-intelligence.
We're deliberately not saying names, and if we said names, nobody would know who we're talking about. So
yeah, I mean, if you listened to us this far, you must be really interested in what we're talking about.
Or you're crazy, or you're crazy,
or we're all crazy. I think from a probability perspective, from a qualitative Bayesian analysis perspective, the null hypothesis is zero. Something's going on. There is zero doubt whatsoever. If you honestly sit down and analyze with all the evidence that we do have in the public domain, several different working hypotheses for what UAPs could be, there is no way you could say, oh, this is all just a hallucination and we're all crazy. I think it's impossible. The data that's coming in now, it's one click away for free. It shows something happened. You basically, and by the way, like Arrow themselves, that the orbs are flying around. We got Phillips saying that they had plans for these things falling from space. So we're just all kind of playing stupid here, right? The reality is, like, from what I've been gathering data on this intensely for years now, and I keep some of it back because it's unbelievable. But there are from what I can determine, I think there is a good chance that there are people out there like Mill and Cook from history. They were silent contactees back in the, like, for example, Mill and Cook. I've written about her and I've posted about her. She had many different names, by the way, and half of them I can't pronounce. She married quite a few times. She was what you call a silent contactee from a young age. Something guided her. It's almost like out of Battlestar Galactica. It's like whoever wrote Battlestar Galactica, the early 2000s stuff, were like studying this shit. Mill and Cook wrote a bunch of very interesting things, and she was really deep in the BSRA, the Borderlands Sciences Research Association. She also, and this doesn't help her case, but she did create the Scientology logo as well. She wasn't a Scientologist though, but she knew Hubbard anyway. And she contributed quite a bit to like a bunch of UFO books and things like that. And what do they call them? Secret astronaut. What do they call? Ancient astronaut stuff, kind of things like that in the 60s. Anyway, what I'm trying to say,
euphonauts.
Yeah, like ancient astronaut. They used to call it ancient astronaut theory and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
What I am trying to say,
still do on whatever the History Channel show is, Ancient Aliens.
Yeah, I'm giving an example, Mill and Cook from history. Yeah. The reason why she's a great example is because they never went away. As far as I can determine, they still exist. And they're out there for sure. And some of them are extraordinarily influential for sure. And I do think they do want this message out. They do want disclosure out. I don't know why, they're there. And I personally think that anyway. They're there. They exist. And you wouldn't recognize them. You wouldn't know it. You would just see them and they're just regular people, right? I mean, they probably are for all maybe with some special DNA or something. I don't know. I'm just speculating here. But they have extremely strong abilities to remote view. They are incredibly good channelers. Some of them are trance channelers and they don't even remember what they channel. They work in groups. So if there could be a trance channeler who's also a silent contactee who's been trained to do this from a young age, it's genetic, meaning it runs in family lines. Some of them are connected to very, very wealthy individuals. And some of them can be very influential politically as well. And this is just what I've been able to do research, when able to figure out, it's taken a long time to figure this stuff out. And I'll never say names or anything like that ever, but this what we think is reality is just a subset of what's really happening from what I can determine anyway. And I'm getting older here. I'm almost 50 years old. I don't really give a shit anymore. I've proven myself a million times in the software space. I don't really care. People think they could say we're just freaking crazy. I don't give a shit anymore. I don't care. Whatever. So it's just my opinion.
They don't have to believe you, right?
Yeah, I'm not asking anybody to believe me.
Weird thing. People get really defensive. Like, well, you I don't believe that. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, I have proven. I believe I've thoroughly proven myself in the software space. I know software extremely well. I've been programming since December 1985. All my proof is on GitHub, and I have the credits going back, to the early 90s in video games and other stuff. So I don't care. I don't care what they think anymore. I could give a rat's ass what people in the software industry think of what I believe or don't believe, whatever. I don't care. I got to keep my mouth shut or I'll say too much. But anyway, I'm almost 50 years old, right? I'm no longer a kid, and I'm tired of keeping it in, right? I'm really interested in it. I think this is the most fascinating, wide open space there is. This is the edge of the edges. This is where the scientists should be. They should be here. They should be looking.
They're not.
Yeah, they're not, except for like exceptions like Hal Put Up and things like that. They should be right here, or Dr. Nolan, or Jacques Vallée. So this is the real scientists should be here, but instead they're busy coming up with their equations that lead nowhere, right? So playing around with string theories and big bangs that might not even have happened according to the latest data that's coming out. So anyway, I'm just kind of rambling here, but I'm kind of like, I love the software and that's what I do for a living. and and my software is I optimize for the number of mines, much like Crowley or Parsons. How many mines can I get the results of my software to see? And so I'm now up to 1 billion per month. So my software is that used. It's a very fundamental software. It's like operating system level. It's like right above it, right in it. It's like that kind of stuff. So yeah, if you've used certain map programs, you've seen my work. You just didn't know it. So anyway, that's why I just do my thing now. I'm going to sit here and write my codecs. I'm now writing on the texture side, on the image side. I stay away from video because it's a patent minefield. I don't want to deal with the freaking trolls. Anyway, I'm now up to codec number 8, and every single one of my other codecs is used by, a lot of software, and it's all open source. We just give it away, and we listen to customers that pay. Though I'll be honest with you, if they're paying, we listen to them. Those are the people we prioritize for. Anyway, so on the software side, like I went to the center of the PC video game industry, and it was educational, but not in the way I expected. For sure, it was disturbing, very disturbing actually, and it was pretty much crazy to be. It was really crazy, mad. I've explained it to Sean quite a bit. Some of the things that I've witnessed.
Well, I used to work as an investment banker for some period of time, so I fully understand.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm done with. I'm not done with video games. If I ever work on a video game again, though, it'll be indie. It'll be my own video game, or I'll help friends ship their video game. I've done that before. I did that on Age of Empires Definitive Edition 1, and that was hell because half the tasks that they couldn't solve wound up on my lap. I was brought in for some graphics work, and I wound up doing network coding, AI coding, out of sync coding, like UI coding. It was just insane. I was like, what the hell? And I was paid. Also, the video games just don't pay. Good luck making money in video games. Like if you get lucky, you get lucky. You get what they used to call the lottery ticket in Silicon Valley. So I do love video games though. But these days I found I can be way more impactful outside of video games, Sean, than inside. So, and the video game guys, you do use my codecs for what it's worth. Yeah, I program primarily in C++ with C and a bunch of shader languages, OpenCL, assembly, mostly intrinsic though. I don't really dive into the raw assembly much anymore. I used to program in x86 assembly intensively commercially. I've shipped DOS stuff. I can still run DOS software. I have a ton of computers here. I'm good. I know hardware very well. I know analog design, digital design, FPGAs. I don't do that professionally, just for hobby. I know a bit of radio stuff. Yeah, but I just love software. I mess with C#, but it's just you're in an abstraction. You're in you're in a sandbox. It's like doesn't feel real to me. But yeah, anyway, I have competitors, but the good news is China bought all my competitors, so pretty much I have. My main competitor was bought out by China. I won't say any names or any companies, but they're gone. So I'm now just kind of out here myself. There's like 2 other groups that I maybe could compete against, but my stuff's used in the Unity game engine. That's all public information. So Crunch, that's codec number 2. Texture codec number 2 that I wrote, that's using the Unity game engine. But codec number 1 I wrote was using Halo Wars. I'm looking at the comments. You're likely in a video game. You're like in a simulation.
Yeah, by the way, way beyond.
Yeah, I know. We should stop.
Rich was like worried he wasn't going to have enough to say. I'm like, Rich.
Yeah, I'm kind of just meandering around. We're kind of I'm practicing.
Oh, we were definitely aware of Cliff High.
Yeah, Cliff High. Yeah, he's a interesting character for sure. Yeah, Cliff. Controversial, but his predictions, some of them are holy shit. What is going on there? Wow. Some of his predictions are just over the target. You got to give him that. Whatever. Wow.
All right. We should probably wrap up. So, Rich.
Yep. Good talking.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it's great
seeing you on American Alchemy.
You got to like and subscribe. To Sean. He needs every viewer.
Yeah, and resubscribe if you
resubscribe. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so anyway, I'll see y'all this weekend this Sunday. I don't know what I'm going to be doing, but I'll figure it out when I set up the episode. So
Nice.
all right. Good night,
Nice.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody. See you later.